Good evening. To order the Paramount City Council meeting of August 16th, 2022. Heidi, may I have roll call council members, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Delgadillo.
Present.
Councilmember Lemons.
Here.
Councilmember Olmos.
Here.
Vice Mayor Aguayo. Mayor Quer Stallings.
Here.
Is Isabel coming or
I
was she coming?
Do we do a motion to excuse and retract it? I'll make a motion to excuse.
Okay, second.
roll call, please.
Excuse, yeah.
Councilmember Delgadillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons.
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos.
Yes.
Mayor Quer Stallings.
Yes. Thank you, Heidi. John, are there any public comment updates from the last city council meeting, sir?
No, ma'am.
Okay, now is the time that members of the public may comment on items that are not on the agenda. Mr. City Manager, are there any speaker cards this evening, sir?
We have not received any, Madam Mayor.
Okay, great. Okay, let's move on. Now we'll move on to the consent calendar. May I have a motion for approval for the consent calendar?
So move, Lemons.
Second.
Heidi, may I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Delgadillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons.
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos.
Yes.
Mayor Quer Stallings.
Here, yes. Next, we'll move on to new business, starting with several oral presentations. Our first presentation is about the dangers of street racing. John, will you please introduce the presenter?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you very much. This first presentation involves, as you know, a topic that the City Council is very aware of and has taken major steps to try and address, and that's street racing and intersection takeovers. For instance, our fine for spectators, as you know, is at $2,000, which is one of the highest, if not the highest in the region. The administrative citation process established by our city attorney and our in-house deputy DA for vehicles that are confiscated is extremely strict and has led to vehicle forfeitures. We've invested in and are experimenting with high-end surveillance cameras at major intersections. We provide countless hours of overtime for our sheriff's deputies dedicated to patrolling and being on alert specifically for street racing and intersection takeovers. In other words, we've given our sheriff's deputies the tools needed to address this dangerous illegal activity. It is safe to say that the Paramount City Council has taken the lead on addressing the enforcement and prevention of street racing in our community and intersection takeovers. And this has been confirmed in law enforcement circles, particularly from the California Highway Patrol Street Racing Task Force. So tonight's presentation will be from a nonprofit organization called Street Racing Kills. Councilmember Olmos put us in touch with this organization after meeting them in Sacramento during the Contract Cities legislative tour earlier this year. So with us tonight is Ms. Lily Trujillo, founder and executive director of Street Racing Kills, who will tell us about her organization. Welcome, Lily.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's my honor to be here. And let me say how much I commend you for passing that ordinance, because we can do a lot by educating. We can do a lot by pushing bills. But pushing bills, it takes a while, right? And by just doing this ordinance like this, you guys just jumped ahead of everything, and it's awesome. And I've been passing this ordinance around when I found out also through Lakewood. So every time I have a meeting with the LAPD, with anybody, I tell them, look who's doing this, look who's doing that. So they're like, oh my God, we can go ahead and do this, right? And start preventing so many deaths. So yes, I am the founder of Street Racing Kills. I founded this organization back in 2014. In 2013, my daughter passed away to a street racing crash when I had no idea what street racing was. Let me see if I can, which button do I have to push? Middle? No, sorry. Oh, I think I skipped it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so what is SRK? So we are a nonprofit organization founded in 2014 by myself, Lily, after I lost my daughter. She was 16 years old when she passed away. By a young man that was just taking her home. He got challenged to a street race and crashed and killed my daughter. So the truth is the consequence can be, emotionally damaging. We decided to start supporting bills. AB 3 with Assembly Member Fong, it passed with flying colors. However, we have to wait a couple of more years for their license to be taken away. So we just kept pushing, seeing how many teenagers have passed away from reckless driving. Speeding continues to be one of the number one, killer of teens, and young adults. I decided to just do something about it when this happened to me. And I'm sorry, but this doesn't seem to be. Sorry, it's not working. Okay, here we go. So as I said before, my daughter passed away on December 7th, 2013, when I tried to do something about it. I wanted to prevent it. I didn't know what street racing was. So we started creating programs. We started creating, and I said we because that's my daughter and I. And of course, now we have a whole team with us, which is great. And I'm sorry, but I'm trying to do this, but it's just
We
not,
can advance the slides for you if you'd like.
Oh, thank you, please. So be the. There, thank you. Thank you.
Just tell us next slide when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So as you can see in those pictures, there's us, in front of a restaurant, taking a selfie. And 4 months later, there I am at my daughter's funeral. And there's the crash in the middle. So I wanted to name my organization. I thought of many names, but Street Racing Kills is what killed her. And since 2014, the problem has not gotten any better. As you all know, it got actually worse. I knew that, unfortunately, more people had to die. The problem had to get worse for me, I looked like a, crazy Karen going to all these schools. Hey, let me get in, and they wouldn't let me get in, especially with the name Street Racing Kills. However, we were able to continue and do more. Next slide, please. Why? By trying to gear them, educating them, and gear them towards the track, where you can go, where it is a legal place that you can take it to. And I'm going to show you right now a video. It's pretty rough. I don't know if you all heard about the Lamborghini crash. I think it was very known. It was a 17-year-old that was given a Lamborghini by his dad. So we're going to just play a little bit of the impact and what happens to these families when crashes like this happen.
It was the worst news any parent could have gotten. And what happened to my daughter was not fair because she deserves to be here still today.
32-year-old Monique Munoz was killed last month when a Lamborghini slammed into her car.
A 17-year-old who police say was behind the wheel of a brand new Lamborghini SUV is under arrest for a deadly accident in West LA.
She was unique in the way she treated the world. She just had kindness, love. And now we're left with just all the pieces. All the broken pieces.
Such a young, vibrant, beautiful, ambitious young woman. 32 years old.
One of the things that haunts me most is just what Monique experienced in those final moments. But when neighbors tell us that it sounded like a bomb went off, we've seen photos of the car nearly split in two and can't imagine.
I never thought that would have been the last time that I was going to see her.
The keys inside of her purse were bent in half. The necklace that was around her neck, we never found it.
She was my daughter. She was my best friend. Parents don't bury their children, but I will never be at peace until justice is served for my daughter.
Go ahead, ma'am. Hi, there's a very, very bad accident on Olympic and Overland.
Okay, Olympic and Overland, how many vehicles?
I think somebody may have been killed.
Okay, miss, how many vehicles are involved?
It's very bad. Please.
Miss, how many vehicles are
I'm
involved?
on fire. Yes.
So just that was actually the impact victim statement that they did at court, and Street Racing Kills. We helped them. You know, we brought a videographer to help them because one of the things that I wanted to do was to help these victims. You know, when they're at the worst moment of their life, when they don't know what to do, they don't know about what should I do when I go to court. That they're just that happened to me, and I had no idea what to do. I had no idea that even if I would say my victim statement, that the district attorney could just only do what he could do for me, and I didn't know that how to fight for justice. I didn't know what the laws were, so I make sure with the Racing Kills that we advocate for these parents, for these families that have lost someone, and guide them in the right direction. What are their rights? What they can do when they go to court? How can we help them? And with this particular family, the Munoz family, we did their this video, which was still now being used right now because they're actually suing the millionaire father from Beverly Hills. So it's been great to help them in whatever they can. And you know, it sounds really sad, you know, but we're also always looking for people that have gone through something like this because they can join us, you know, in what we're doing. Next slide, please. One of the things that I really, really wanted to do was to, besides going to the schools and mentoring these teenagers, was do something, some kind of diversion also for the kids that are out there, these young people, and also young adults that are actually going to the takeovers, as you guys know. And what are they doing? You know, how can we mentor them? So Mad Mother Second Stone Drivers has a program, right, for the driving under the influence, which I've been a victim speaker forever. So I decided to create my own. So here the courts are referring them to us after they're spectating, they're doing the street racing, they're going over any kind of reckless driving. They're referred to us by the courts, and we're happy to mentor them. Can we play the second video, please?
Viewer discretion is advised.
So yes, these are some of the things that we see in social media a lot. It seems glamorous, obviously, but it's not. So that's why we have this program. So these, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of it. Some of you might see it, but you just go on Instagram and it's all over. Next slide, please. So what do we need to do? As Street Racing Kills, we want to do everything we can to get to them before they go there. We want to talk to them. We want to mentor them. We want to talk to them about traffic safety, everything that is reckless driving. We bring speakers that are actually survivors, or they have been through tragedy, or they lost someone. We partner with different nonprofits like the Liam's Foundation, My Mother Second Stone Driver, Connected to Lead, you name it. LASD Motorsports are amazing. The sheriff's department that actually race at the track, and they'll bring a race car, Tesla, so they can see it and mentor them where to go. So we've created different programs just to try to make sure we get them before they before they get invited to a takeover, before they get challenged to a series, know what to do and how to defend themselves and how to respect their life. Next slide, please. And yes, and we're advocates, guys, so we advocate for safe streets. Like we say, we help in supporting bills that will help us. And we ask anybody that wants to join us in what we're doing in this. The Fast and Furious movie is actually going to start filming in a couple of weeks, and I think in Angelino Heights. So we already been contacted to please help them because they do not want them anymore. They had too many deaths there as well, so they don't want it anymore. And even though we cannot say, okay, they're completely responsible. We believe that this is not the right time with the high problem that we're having for them to be bringing, the Fast and Furious 10. Next slide, please. And what we do is we really ask everyone and ask all the people that we talk to just make it home safe. There's somebody waiting for you at home. Be the driver of the person that you love the most. Be that driver. Save it for the track if you have to. And we talk to them with our hearts. To the teens, to the young adults, on any way that we can do to prevent this problem, by being advocates, by helping any way we can to do this. And I do this from the bottom of my heart, and I think I'll never stop because of my daughter. Before she passed away, I had no idea how traffic safety is so important. I had no idea how many people unfortunately die on our streets due to reckless driving. But I believe that there's always everything that we do as a community, everything that we do, what you guys did is so life-saving. And I'm making sure that everybody knows about the order that you guys did, and every bill that is passed, and every little bit that we do. And when we go to schools, we know we're sparing a parent from losing a child. So thank you very much. I'm open for questions if you have any.
My colleagues have any questions or comments?
I have just a comment, Madam Mayor. First of all, Ms. Trail, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. I think this is extremely impactful. I want you to know I'm so sorry for your loss there, but for the grace of God, go any of us mothers. I think, this isn't new, like you said, and any of our children at any time could have experienced this.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing this to us.
Thank
and then
you.
I have a question for the city attorney. Is any part of our ordinance mandate any kind of classes afterwards as a deterrent? And I would mean that not only for drivers, which we catch less of, but spectators.
That's a good question, Council Member. We don't have any requirement in our ordinance regarding classes. We were focusing just more on getting the vehicles off the streets and then imposing fines on the spectators. But what you're proposing is actually a good idea, and maybe we can partner with Street Racer Kills too and see if we can get more of that education in there. We have found that in the cases that we've been dealing with, which the young people or the drivers, we would have meetings with them and the parents, and the parents bring up the same issues that you are, is that it would be really good if we can try to educate these kids. Because what happens is that after the event, after something like this happens, and they have the thought of losing that car or entering into a judgment, which means they're on a 5-year restriction, it kind of starts to get to them that this could be some serious thing. So a lot of times being proactive is a good idea. I also want to say too that I get in touch with the commander at the CHP on a regular basis, and he actually emailed me the other day because the city council did approve that round structure, the construction on Madison, and he actually emailed me and said that is a great idea, and we want to try to get other municipalities to do something similar. So the city of Paramount is a pioneer in this, and we would like to maybe encourage and do more in training, and education certainly could be one of them. It's really a number of tools in one box that we can use.
Yeah, I would love to see us look at if that could be part of the ordinance that, like I said, not just the person driving the vehicle, but we seem to be able to catch a lot more spectators than vehicle drivers, and give them their fine plus a mandatory class where they can see the impact that they can have, because I think this is very powerful.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. We actually do work with the California Highway Patrol. So in our diversion program that we have, but they actually join over Zoom. Believe me, we get them from everywhere. We get some from Paramount as well. And because it's what the court sends them to us, especially they're going a lot to Compton. That's where they're the closest, I guess, and or LA. And we have a California Highway Patrol that talks to them as well. And we have 2 victim speakers, including myself, another lady that lost, my community relations director, lost her niece to a street racing crash in Willowbrook. And then we have a gentleman that actually went to prison for 22 years when he was 18. and he just got out not long ago. He's amazing when he talks to them because we want to show them, both sides. So here we are telling them as victims, but then what happened when you're the one that killed someone for manslaughter? What happens? What he went through in prison? What his life is like about? So, yeah, our program is very comprehensive. So we will be so happy. Also, if anybody's interested, I will be happy to share the link. And for our next class on the 22nd, and we have them every other Monday. You guys are welcome to see the class with your camera off and see what we're doing and how we're mentoring them.
Madam Mayor, may I just
Yes.
add one thing? Is there a possibility that we can introduce them to our school districts? Maybe they could do some educational classes at the schools?
Absolutely. Madam Mayor, if I may just add,
Yes.
Ms. Trujillo had the opportunity to come and give this presentation before our Public Safety Commission, and we are really trying to get the word out there and get the schools involved. So if that's the direction that City Council wishes to go with, we can make it happen.
Madam Mayor, School Board Member Diane Martinez was present at the meeting, the public safety meeting, and she did take a card and she took it to Mr. Superintendent Frutos, and they're on the ball with having a program for the high schoolers and possibly the middle schoolers to start them.
Good.
Young. So that's in the
Great.
works
No,
right
thank
now.
you so much.
That's in the works.
It's gonna,
yes.
honestly, it's gonna be so life-saving. We gotta have to get them before, and that's our goal. And anywhere we can do it, I have created programs. It can be an assembly, a school project, or as an after-school. So I had to try everything to get into the schools, as there's no more driver's education, as you guys know.
And
So-
Madam Mayor, if I could just make another suggestion to staff, it would probably be a great presentation too for our youth commission, so that
Absolutely.
they can see,
Yep.
the best way to filter that information down through the schools too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
We can do that.
That would be great too. It makes me think back. I know, if in most, if not all schools anymore, there's not driver's education.
There's no more.
And I am a product of when they used to have it in the schools, and I will never forget the videos that they
Red
showed us.
asphalt, I think is closed.
Everybody,
Everybody tells me about it. I'm not from here, but I've heard.
You don't follow the rules of the road, and so I think you're filling a gap that's been there for a long time that needs to come back, because obviously,
Totally.
this is out of control. But I think for anybody open to listening, especially when you catch those young minds and hearts before they get out of there on the road, which is what they used to do for us, and they had impact statements from people who had killed somebody, from reckless driving. So I think what you're doing is
Yeah.
so admirable and so
Oh,
appreciative.
thank you. Well, we're doing what we can. I just want to make sure that my daughter's death's not in vain. She is an example that she didn't choose to be, but I know she's saving lives together with other people that have joined us. They are also victims. So we are just very happy that we can mentor them and having respect their life and have that respect at the wheel. And then there are future drivers.
That's right.
We have to do what we have to do. I mean, we can prevent all this. I really believe firmly that we can prevent all of this, and if we mentor them, and they'll be driving safer on our streets. And I was very appalled to know that I didn't know that that there was no more driver's education. I had no idea. That we tell them, hey, this is what you have to do. What are you going to do if you're in this situation? How can you make them? I literally tell them, that you're going to, vomit in their car if they don't let you out. I mean, anything you can do to protect your life once you're there, because in my daughter's case, her girlfriend knew. She saw the whole race start, and she got so scared that she put her seatbelt on and just sat there without saying anything to defend herself. So that's what we do. We make sure these kids, are protected and learn since they're young. And then to the adults, just send them over to a diversion program. We're happy to talk to them. Thank you.
I have a comment.
Yes.
I'm in agreement with my colleagues. We do have to make sure our school district is aware of this. I wanted to ask you, how many school districts in the area of Southern California have you spoken to at the high school levels, ma'am?
We've been everywhere, Southgate, Burbank, Torrance, Lomita. Oh my gosh, I've been West Covina. Where else? We actually went to Bakersfield not long ago. Lancaster. I mean, everywhere that they ask us to be. So we've been pretty much. We've done some community events as well. We did some in Wilmington where we couldn't get into the schools, so we did a I partner with other nonprofits like LA Walks, and we're able to do a huge community event. And then we also have it's called Vows Respect the Road scholarship. And what we do is we provide driving schools for underserved children that the parents cannot afford to pay for it. So what we do is they have to attend our summit. So they'll get everything, and then they have to do an essay on a crash, and then we pay for the driving school. So I just, rather than the cousin or the uncle teaching them how to drive all the way to they're 18, they have to get the proper education. So we do that once a year, and that's everywhere. But yes, we have gone to many schools. I don't have my list with me, but everywhere we can get in. But we haven't been to Paramount, guys, so I would love to be here.
And then
that's
John,
another avenue for us to think about, even investing in a scholarship in our grant programs, because they don't offer driver's ed anymore, and it's actually very expensive on your own. So a lot of people just wait till their kids are 18 and let them go, and it's too late.
And John Moreno, sir, I would also like to put this on the agenda with ad hoc, so we can follow up with them. What their plans are.
Certainly.
Because these are our students and these are residents, and I want to make sure that they're following up with this and
Certainly.
following through with it, sir.
Okay. Ms. Trio, would you be willing to do a presentation before the ad hoc committees, 2 council members and 2 school board members that meet on a monthly basis?
Of course.
So you have a really good a captive audience there to meet with. So
yeah, and I'll make more of my brochures for the Vows Respect the Road, the summit that's coming up on Teen Traffic Safety Week as well. That's going to be virtual. We're on the 3rd week of October, and that's where they can also sign up for the scholarship. So that'll be great.
Great.
I'll bring all my information.
We'd love to have you back.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Olmos, for bringing this to our attention.
Yes. Yes, Brenda. Really appreciate this.
Andrew, was there talks about talking with AAA? Remember we met with AAA too? Did everything ever come out of the education portion of AAA?
Yeah, our public safety director, Maggie Matson, she was last in contact with AAA. We did meet with them after, if you recall, that meeting with our small group.
Yeah.
I think the last we left off was that they were going to continue to monitor our ordinance to see the effectiveness in it. And I think, Maggie, if you have anything to add.
Yes, so after meeting with AAA, they requested information regarding how we've been enforcing the ordinance. All the materials were shared with them. We've been keeping track. Not too long ago, they actually published an article where their CEO highlighted the effects. We're still hoping to make it just based on everything that we've done. I definitely concur that Paramount has been paving the way with the way we've been addressing street racing and the way we've been enforcing. So we're definitely getting the name out there that there is zero tolerance, but we're also focusing not only on the enforcement, but the education to make sure that our community knows the dangers of street racing. I can definitely get in contact with them again, and we're really trying to see if we could do a featured article just of all our efforts to curb this behavior.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Maggie. Next is the presentation from our partners at the Vector Control District. John, will you please introduce the presenter, sir?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd be delighted. This next item is the latest presentation in a series of guest presenters from outside agencies that the city belong to. And this is in an effort to educate the city council and the public on what these various agents do and answer the question as to why we belong to them. And as the mayor mentioned, this particular agency is the Greater Los Angeles County Vector Control District, or as we like to call them, just simply Vector Control. Vice Mayor Aguayo serves as our representative on the Vector Control Board of Trustees. And as you'll see from the presentation, Vector Control's primary focus is on preventing the spread of mosquitoes in our area. So today you'll learn all about mosquitoes. So with us today is Ms. Mary Joy Coburn, the Director of Communications from Vector Control. Hi, Mary Jo.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff, and everybody else. Thank you for having me. I'm going to try to see if this works. It doesn't seem to. The next slide, please. All right, so we provide an integrated vector control management approach that consists of disease surveillance, mosquito management, and education and outreach. Next slide. So since 2020, these are the services that we have provided for the city of Paramount. You can see here the different circles represent different activities or services that have been provided. So over 1,000 residential and public inspections, 133 swimming pools, and these are unmaintained swimming pools that could be breeding mosquitoes, and then 385 times for underground storm drains. So we have them on our route, and we go to them every 7 or so days to inspect, and if they are breeding mosquitoes, then they are treated. Next slide. Why care about mosquitoes? Well, mosquitoes are the deadliest creatures in the world. They kill about 700,000 people each year, and this is worldwide. And mosquitoes are also capable of transmitting diseases like West Nile virus, Zika, dengue, and other ones that we will talk about later. And it only takes one infected mosquito to cause an outbreak in a community. As you know, we've dealt with a global pandemic. This is another thing that we are trying to prevent. Next slide. The mosquito life cycle, this is a video, but unfortunately you can't see it. It shows the life cycle of a mosquito. Only female mosquitoes bite. And the female mosquitoes need the blood meal for their eggs, for protein. And then the whole cycle takes about 7 days. And 3 of the phases in their life stage are aquatic, meaning they are in the water. And when it's warmer, the whole process actually is expedited. So it takes about 5 days. In the summer, we see a lot more activities because the process is sped up. Next slide. So there are 2 kinds of mosquitoes that we are most concerned about here in Southern California. One is the brown mosquito on the left. It's the Culex mosquito. This is the one that is capable of transmitting West Nile virus. So we've had West Nile virus in our county since 2003. The other mosquito to the right, it's actually a black and white mosquito. It has a red abdomen because it had just had a blood meal. So this is a female mosquito. This is the one that's been around not too long. A lot of residents have been experiencing them a lot more because they are a lot more aggressive. They tend to bite in the lower extremities. So they've been called ankle biters because they bite around the ankles, around the legs, and then it also exposes our pets because our pets tend to be down there. And these mosquitoes are capable of transmitting Zika, dengue, yellow fever, and other diseases. Next slide. This map or diagram pretty much shows the different numbers since 2020. And in California, right now, it is 965 West Nile virus mosquitoes that, we set them out, we set out traps, we bring them back, and we send them to UC Davis to get tested for West Nile virus, St. Louis encephalitis, etc. So the numbers are, pretty staggering. If you compare 2022 West Nile virus compared to 2021 and 2020, it doesn't seem like much, but August, September is our active season or active month, so we could see a lot more activities soon. But if you look at the bottom numbers, City of Paramount, it's actually not that much compared to other numbers. In 2020, we only had 1 sample of mosquitoes that tested positive for West Nile, same with 2021, and in 2022, as of right now, we don't have any. But as you know, although we live in the city, we don't always do everything here. We have families elsewhere. We may go shopping somewhere else. We have friends that we visit. So you can see on the map that there's a lot of activities anywhere else. So just because the numbers in Paramount are low does not mean that it is, quote unquote, safe, because mosquitoes can sometimes travel as well. We've seen it happen, and if there's an infestation in Orange County and someone visits over there, keeps their windows open, and then they travel back and they could be transporting mosquitoes. Next slide. The other mosquito that, I've talked about already is invasive Aedes mosquito, and it is a black and white mosquito, and here's a list of the diseases that they are capable of transmitting: Zika, dengue, chikungunya, yellow fever, and canine heartworm to our pets. So the issue is if someone travels to somewhere, another country, for example, where there is active transmission occurring, and they are bitten by that mosquito, they could be viremic when they come back to Paramount. And since we have these mosquitoes already present in our neighborhood, when they are bitten by the mosquitoes here, now that mosquito has the virus, and if they bite someone else, we could have local transmission. So that's what we're trying to avoid. Next slide. All right, so before we start talking about the actual method of control, let's first address what the new challenges are in controlling the invasive Aedes mosquitoes. These mosquitoes were established in the county in 2011 and have been aggressive daytime biters. They prefer to breed in smaller sources such as flower pot saucers, yard drains, and water-holding plants. And the plants, sometimes like bromeliad or agave or anything, their leaf axils form like a container. So if you water them from up top, the water do collect and the mosquitoes could breed there. Their ability to lay in multiple and small sources make them difficult to control. And one big challenge for vector control is gaining access to all these small sources that are in people's properties. In our jurisdiction, there's just a lot of homes, apartments. We can't get into to all of them. That's why it's really important to get the message out so that residents can do their inspections around their home. Next slide. When this is a video typically on the right, it actually shows, this is the very first slide, it shows the spread of the mosquito. So right now you see a cluster, the blue cluster up top, that is in South El Monte. And then there's typically a progression every year where we see them. And unfortunately in 2022, they have spread everywhere in our jurisdiction in Los Angeles. So with the spread of invasive Aedes in LA County, residents' quality of life has changed and how they enjoy the outdoors. In many cases, these residents experience multiple bites in a short period of time while in their backyards outside. This is due to these mosquitoes being aggressive biters, and they prefer to feed on people. Next slide. So something that we are looking into with the impact of invasive Aedes on residents and diseases they carry is a newer technology on how to control these mosquitoes. So SIT, or sterile insect technique, is one method of control. SIT is a non-chemical control method that uses sterilizing male mosquitoes to help control the mosquito population. How does it work? A system is used to sterilize the male mosquitoes in a lab. The mosquitoes are then released in a specific area over a period of time, and the sterile males then mate with the female mosquitoes. The eggs or offspring do not survive into adulthood, which reduces the mosquito population. It's important to note that SIT is specific to controlling one species of mosquitoes. The one that we're looking into is the invasive Aedes mosquitoes. And there are 3 techniques that are currently available. I'm not going to go into it right now because we're still exploring them, but there is that link to review more. Next slide. Okay, so as I've mentioned before, only the female mosquitoes bite. So that's important to know because what we're releasing in this, if we do go to that, are the male mosquitoes. Because they don't bite, they don't transmit diseases. SIT will also not eliminate the use of other chemical control mosquitoes because we will still have the other species of mosquitoes, but it will control or reduce the mosquito population. It will be an ongoing process that releases would need to occur throughout the season every year. According to the US EPA, there is no adverse effect on human or wildlife when releasing sterilized mosquitoes. There are no risks to people, animals, or the environment. District staff is reviewing data for the different techniques. We're still in the early stages and no decision has been made whether to use SIT, but this is something that we're looking into, and we are hopeful for relief in the future. Next slide. Another question that I often get asked is, can mosquitoes transmit COVID-19? The answer is no. There has been no evidence that would say that they do. Next slide. So what can residents do around the home? Well, they need to get rid of standing water at least once a week. As you know, mosquitoes take about 5 to 7 days to develop from egg to adult. So as long as they get rid of standing water, that is something that they can do while vector control continues to maintain rivers, public areas, parks, golf courses, everything else. Of course, residents can continue to call us. They especially call us if there are unmaintained swimming pools in their neighborhood, because as you know, they do breed mosquitoes. It is a public health issue, especially homes that are near schools or parks or where people congregate. A small bottle cap of water can breed 100 mosquitoes. Next slide. On our website, tiptosdakeaction.org, there is a document that residents can download, and it lists the most common breeding sources around the home, and it's divided into different areas of the home, in the kitchen, in the bathroom, backyard, kids areas, etc., and the simple recommendations that they can take to get rid of the mosquitoes. Next slide. It's also important for residents to wear insect repellent. These are EPA approved, CDC recommended ingredients, so it's important that they read the ingredients and the directions. What's been studied to be effective are ingredients that are called DEET, picaridin, IR 3535, or oil of lemon eucalyptus. Next slide. And then this is where they can also see what the ingredients are. It's always on the front of the bottle or whatever it is being used. And we are looking for anything that is 20% or higher because they tend to be a lot more effective. But depending on what it is, it's really important to read the directions, because some are good for 8 hours and some need to be reapplied every 20 minutes. Next slide. I'm also often asked, when is mosquito season? Well, living in beautiful Southern California, we have really good weather year-round. But unfortunately, that also means it's warmer, so we tend to get a lot of mosquito activities throughout the year. But there is a certain time frame when mosquitoes are most active, and that is when it's warm. That is typically the end of May into October. Next slide. We have been looking into partnership opportunities with a lot of the cities that are on our board, and Vice Mayor Aguayo has been really good with getting the message out and working with the PIO, Chris, here to get messages on social media and different partnerships that I can share about in a little bit. Next slide. So one thing that I've actually just delivered today is 7,500 bill inserts, and it has the information here as well as the recommendations for residents. It will be stuffed in envelopes and along with the bills that go to residents, and this is a great way to get our message out. Next slide. So I know I talked about a lot of things. So this is pretty much the highlights. Get rid of standing water. Mosquitoes can transmit diseases. Wear insect repellent and share the message with your friends and family. But I also have a video, a 30-second PSA that we have been showing. So if I can have that.
Is this you during mosquito season? Are mosquitoes biting you all day and night? Mosquito Watch is here to help end the bites. End the bites in your home, in your garden, and while you sleep. End the bites. Learn more at mosquitowatch.org.
And that's it. Thank you so much. That concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions if you have any.
My colleagues have any comments or questions?
I have a couple questions. Is the flea medication that you use on dogs or pets effective against mosquitoes? Or, because mine seem to be scratching and itching all the time, and I figured it might be mosquitoes. But they have their flea medication.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is specific to fleas. There are no, that I know of, there are none that can prevent mosquitoes for pets, but there is specific canine heartworm medication for pets.
For mosquitoes?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And is there any type of home treatment or spray? I know there's a few on the market. I think I've tried all of them. But that you would recommend, or is it just looking for the highest amount of detail, something, to like just spray your home and yard with? I've used the flakes, I've used the sprays, I've used everything.
The best thing to eliminate mosquitoes is really get rid of standing water around your home. But as we also know, even if our homes, our backyards are immaculate, if our neighbors are not watching, what's breeding in their backyard, the mosquitoes can just hop over the fence and get to ours. So it's really important to work with our neighbors and get the message out to them so that the whole community is not impacted. So mosquitowatch.org is also a neighborhood watch that we are doing, and we all throughout our jurisdiction, we've been partnering with a lot of neighborhood watch to do the presentation, because it's the same active people that are watching out for each other and getting the message out. So we're happy to provide information to one active person in the neighborhood who can then help get the message out to their neighbors. Something that we've done is if we see a cluster of neighbors calling from about the same area, then we know that there is an issue in that neighborhood. So we normally have a meeting with them, whether virtual or in person, and we teach them what they can do around their home. There are some companies and there are things that you can purchase from a local home improvement store. Unfortunately, we try to prevent that as much as possible because we don't want the mosquitoes to get used to it. And then when there is a public health issue, a disease transmission, the products that we use will no longer be effective.
One last question. I can be sitting outside with my husband, and I'll get 20 bites, and he gets 0. Is it true that they're attracted to certain blood types?
There have been some studies that indicated that, but we don't really know at this time. I know it's a bunch of different body chemistry or different components that attribute to
They like
bites.
sweet things, huh?
I've heard that. One thing that I did notice, or we do know that mosquitoes are attracted to carbon dioxide. So if there's a group of people standing around and there's one person that's emitting a lot more carbon dioxide than the others,
There it is.
they would be attracted to that person. Because if you think about it, right, like they would have to go to one where they think it's a sure thing. They're going to get their blood meal from that person or pet.
I have a question.
Yes.
I read that if in your patio, if you were to plant marigolds or lavender, that would prevent the mosquitoes from coming into your area, your yard. Is that true? Are there plants that will keep away the mosquitoes?
So there are some plants that can keep away mosquitoes. Citronella is one of them. However, if they are just planted in a pot or around the perimeter of your home, they're not effective. They have to be crushed and emitting fragrance, and that's what repels the mosquitoes. So unfortunately, just having them around will not repel mosquitoes.
What plants are those?
Citronella would be the most effective, but
Have you
they
seen
have
the
to.
candles, or I've done the candles.
Yeah, same thing with the candles, unfortunately, or the bands that people wear. They only protect the circumference of where they are. So if the citronella candle is that big, it'll just protect that area. If you're wearing the bracelet, it'll just protect that half an inch that you're wearing. So it's not the most effective way would be wearing repellent.
Well, what about the mosquito machines, that ultraviolet light where the mosquitoes are flying around, they go
They don't
zap
work
them?
either.
They zap them?
Yeah, unfortunately,
Is that a good?
these are all myths. They work, but they would also be attracting beneficial insects, and you could be zapping those as well.
Okay.
So that becomes a problematic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions?
No, learned a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
For your time.
Thank you.
Now we'll hear a presentation from the Southern California Association of Government.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Similar to our previous presentation, this next presentation involves a guest presenter from an agency to which we are a member. And in this case, it is the Southern California Association of Governments, otherwise known as SCAG. For Paramount, Councilmember Delgadillo serves as our city's voting delegate on the SCAG General Assembly. So with us today to tell us all about SCAG is Sarah Patterson, who is the manager of regional services. Hi, Sarah.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Patterson, and I'm the manager of regional services at SCAG, which is our government affairs department, much more apt name. I'd like to thank you all for having me here today. Like John mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about what SCAG is, provide some information for you and your constituents, but also give you a little bit of information about how you as elected officials can participate with SCAG. Should I see if this works for me?
Roll the dice.
Did I do that? Oh, hey, okay. We're off to a great start. So a little bit about SCAG, because I think we're probably the lesser known agency here in Southern California. Oh, maybe I just got lucky on one.
Go ahead, Steve.
So a little bit about SCAG. Although we are lesser known throughout the agency, throughout the region, we are quite massive. We include 6 counties, about 19.1 million residents, 191 cities. It's about 3,800 square miles. And what we are is an MPO, a Metropolitan Planning Organization. And so we work on a lot of plans, including the long-range transportation plan, sustainable community plans, growth forecasts, and then of course we work with a lot of regional entities, so regional transportation overlap, and of course even some South Coast air quality management plans. Next slide. Just very briefly, our vision and mission statement. Next slide. And a little bit about what we do, so what we're in charge of and why we were created. Like I mentioned, we are in charge of the Regional Transportation Plan and the Sustainable Communities Strategy. We've rebranded both of those to be Connect SoCal, which is a little bit easier to say than RTP SES. We are also in charge of a few items for the federal, some of our federal partners, including the Federal Transportation Improvement Program. And that item down there that I'm sure many of you know, which is the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or RHNA. But other than kind of our tasked duties, one of the things that we provide is being a regional data and information center. I know our executive director likes to think of us as being kind of a public think tank and being able to provide information and data to our member cities, and also as a forum just for regional issues and discussion. Next slide. This is our regional council board members. So these are the executives in charge of our board. I want to take a moment though, very quickly, and just mention the passing, unfortunately, of Carmen Ramirez, who is our first vice president, who passed away over the weekend. So we are very saddened to have lost her just recently. But we are led by Jan Hardink, who is the Riverside County Transportation Commission, but also the mayor of Palm Desert. Next slide. So a little bit of information about the city's involvement and how we're structured. Once a year, SCAG hosts the General Assembly. This is a convening of all 191 cities and Paramount's delegate as well. This is an opportunity to vote on any bylaws changes, to have that change in transition of leadership. And again, it's just a great forum for discussion amongst elected officials. We have hundreds of elected officials and, of course, different partner agencies and many folks who attend. On a more monthly basis, we have our regional council. It's a board of 88 members, which you can probably guess is quite a lot to wrangle. And we have 4 committees underneath them that meet on occasion. But the regional council is fed through our policy committees, which are listed there, CEHD, Community, Economic, and Human Development, Energy and Environment, Transportation, and then our Legislative and Communications Committee. Next slide. A little bit about just us internally. The Regional Council is our governing board. Kome Ejise is our executive director, and he directly responds to them. And then our executive board is listed there. I am under Javier Cartagena, so in our Public Affairs and Government Affairs Department. Next slide. A little bit about our strategic plan and goals. So in early 2018, SCAG adopted the new strategic plan. It was a way to develop a roadmap for the agency to include inclusive processes that challenged and engaged staff and board members and stakeholders. Using stakeholder surveys and focus groups, we were able to put together the strategic plan, and it provided a new and ambitious guidance for the agency. I won't go through all of the items there, but those 7 there are the main points from the strategic plan, as well as the vision and mission statement, which I showed earlier. Next slide. I'm going through a lot of information, but I'm happy to take questions at the end. So again, a little bit about what we do and why we exist. Next slide. As mentioned, SCAG is a regional convener. We oversee all of those 6 counties, but what do we do? On regional issues, as you can see here, transportation, housing, goods movement, and air quality, I like to say it's all those things that cross county lines and creating a forum where folks can talk across county lines. We address transportation needs, including active transportation and demand management, planning and policy development, and again, kind of going back to being a forum for elected officials to have these conversations in order to share information, technical analysis, housing and natural resources. And one of the big items that I like to share, particularly here in the Gateway area, is we do a lot with goods movement. So optimizing those good movement networks, making things more economically efficient, congestion mitigation, and air quality. And kind of one of the big ones, although the less fun one, is SCAG is, of course, ensures compliance with federal, state, and regional air quality, which brings in money for projects. Next slide. Again, a few more items of what we do: sustainable development funding, broadband, which is a new one to SCAG, but of course crosses county borders, and equity and social justice. We provide a lot of resources to cities. Of course, SCAG as an agency has about 50% of our staff are planning staff, and one of the things we do is, quite frankly, just loan them out, have their technical skills be available for your cities, particularly under-resourced cities who might not have the ability to have that planning staff available, as well as data information and even software. Helping to specify funding and find funding for a lot of these projects, including, like I said, the broadband, transportation, and housing. Next slide. So I wanted to touch on housing a little bit. Before I go into this slide, though, I just want to make a disclaimer that I'm head of our government affairs. I am not as cool as a planner, so I might not be able to answer very technical questions, but I will definitely take them back to the cool kids who are the planners and have the knowledge. So RHNA, I'm sure everyone here at the dais knows a little bit about RHNA, but it is our Regional Housing Needs Allocation Plan. One of the ways that the planners like to describe it, and SCAG's role in this process, is the state hands SCAG a pie, and that pie is the housing numbers, and it's SCAG's job to determine how the pie is cut. So we don't really get to determine what we receive, but we are the entity in charge of figuring out how to cut it up and how to allocate it. As mentioned, or as we see here on the slide, this is the periodic process of updating the housing elements for your general plans. And again, as mentioned, it quantifies the needs of housing within each jurisdiction. Next slide. RHNA assists in helping communities use planning and prioritization for local resource allocation and in deciding how to address identified existing and future housing needs. This, of course, results from population, employment, and household growth, and it's all things that SCAG considers when it is cutting up the pie. And of course, the goal of this is to enhance quality of life, improve access to jobs, which I know is a big one here in the region, and promote transportation mobility. One of the things that we are focusing more and more on as part of SCAG's undertaking, but also addressing the social equity and fair housing needs. I don't think it's any mystery some of the social inequities that have come through decades of planning, and SCAG is very adamant about reversing a lot of those and making them much more, making the fixes for that much more prevalent in how we plan, and particularly in housing. Next slide. So this past RHNA process, this past cycle was a departure from previous RHNA cycles in that HCD included what they defined as existing need, as well as with future demand in the allocation. So this past sixth cycle, SCAG was given, a pie, to use my metaphor, of 1.3 million units. This is 3 times more than the previous cycle. The housing crisis we are experiencing is, of course, decades in the making. In the 1970s, housing production added 1 new unit for every 1.74 persons, and by the 1990s, it had declined to one new unit for every 4.5 persons. In the past decade, it's improved to get to about one new unit for every 264 persons. However, this is not enough to make up for that previous demand in previous decades. Next slide. One of the things, of course, that SCAG focuses a lot on when we create these transportation plans, when we work on goods movement, when we look at housing and sustainability. So not just growing smartly. I know staff has mentioned a few plans that we have worked with, our SCAG planners have worked with you on, including the North Paramount Gateway Specific Plan and ADU Resources Project. There's a lot of wealth of information that I'm happy to share about how our SCAG planning staff can assist, particularly with ADU development and also with housing development. But SCAG's sustainability program works actively amongst our communities and stakeholders, and it's based off of the principles of things of that our counties should be mobile, livable, prosperous, and sustainable. This program, though, as mentioned here on the slide, is mostly focused on reducing greenhouse gases, and that is from our state mandate, from cars and light trucks, and that's by using transportation, land use, housing, and environmental planning. So using all those tools together to help bring down greenhouse gases. Next slide. We do that through a few programs. The Sustainable Communities Program, which was established for promoting local jurisdictional efforts to test local planning tools by collaborating with regional partners to secure planning and implement funding to build out electric vehicle charging. I know that's a big one right now, especially in the Gateway area. And developing the Sustainable Community Strategy, which is what we use to guide the greenhouse gas emissions from cars and light trucks. And again, we have a focus on with goods movement. Next slide. Of course, we can't have sustainability without tying in public health and climate change and our clean cities. With sustainability comes great improvements in health outcomes and reduces inequities. We work hard to coordinate activities with both the private and public sector to help support our alternative fuel vehicles. But we do that by collaborating with public policy, investing in joint projects, and leveraging resources. Next slide. And then a little bit about what we can do for you, just kind of as a member city. Next slide. Again, we like to consider SCAG unique mostly just because it's a regional forum. You have the state legislature where you have folks from all over the state of California, and at SCAG, it's kind of a miniature version of that. With 88 board members, you have the mayor of Malibu sitting next to a council member from Murrieta. And so that discussion that happens on policy and the share of ideas and things that happen is, quite unique and one that we are very proud of. So to mention a few of those, our regional conference and general assembly, which is the one time a year where all 191 cities come together. It's also in Palm Springs, so that's not terrible. The annual Southern California Economic Summit, which brings together private and public sector leaders to hear about issues affecting the economy, as well as in that role of sustainability and transportation. And then we also host a demographic workshop, and this is in coordination with USC. And this looks at the latest trends in demographics, migration, and growth trends, which of course is all important to our housing issues. Next slide. We also do a lot of legislative advocacy. Of course, when you go to Sacramento or to DC and you have 19.1 million people behind you, it is a very powerful voice. And we like to use that voice to really provide back for our 191 members. SCAG has really been at the forefront over the past few years for advocating for our fair share of federal and state funding. We've been able to deliver billions of dollars to the region by harnessing kind of that power behind our regional access. A few of the things I'll mention is for the Assembly Housing Working Group, SCAG has been able to host a series of regional roundtables to examine the barriers and look for solutions to the state housing process. We meet with the members of that working group quite regularly and been able to discuss legislative housing priorities. We also, as seen in the slide, have been working with support for SB 15, which is Senator Anthony Portantino's bill, which would create a new program to award grant funding to cities and counties that rezone idle retail sites for the development of affordable housing. And then I'll just quickly list off a few other ones, which is tax increment financing, the infill infrastructure grant program, and of course, making sure that transportation priorities for the state budget surplus were considered. We've been able to get about over $10 billion for transit, over $4 billion in SB1 money, and have been able to get $2 billion to assist in the transition from to zero emission vehicles. Next slide. And then just a few other ones because they were mentioned and are new to SCAG, but broadband deployment is one. We have a consortium that we're working with, again, kind of tying in the power of regional voices, and infrastructure investment, working with CalSTA and joining working groups in order to bring almost $14 billion to California over the next 5 years. And the last thing, again, I'd like to mention just for legislative advocacy is prioritizing last mile. I know I am a Gateway member. I live actually about 10 minutes away. So I know how much it affects us to see all of the trucks that go through. So prioritizing last mile is really going to help focus on those greenhouse gas reductions. Next slide. SCAG also is a huge grant program disperser. Because of our location and because of our regional nature, we are given a lot of funds from the state and from the federal entities in order to provide out to our members. A few of those are listed here, which is REAP 2.0, which is a state housing program, the Last Mile Freight Program, and again, the Sustainable Communities Program, which I've mentioned. If you're not familiar with REAP 2.0, it was the original REAP was established by AB 140 in July of 2021, but the newest iteration of it will see almost $600 million coming to SCAG in the next few months, and all of that we will work on making sure to provide housing and transportation options for our cities. Next slide. As a regional convener, we don't implement, and so we don't have any fun ribbon cuttings. We don't go out to site visits. It's a lot of data, it's a lot of analysis, it's a lot of documents. A few things, though, that we are able to provide, which is a little bit more tangible, and I wanted to also comment on the previous presentation about the street racing, is SCAG actually does have a program called Go Human. This is our active transportation program, and it is all about pedestrian safety. One of the things that you as a city can do is actually reach out to us, and we can provide everything from yard signs, bus wraps, billboards, promoting safe pedestrian access. The other thing that the Go Human does is if you are interested in changing a street in your city and to make it more pedestrian friendly, and you want to have your constituents see what it might look like and how it might function, we have temporary build-outs that we can come and loan the city and install, and it gives your constituents an idea of what it might look like to have outdoor dining or more pedestrian safe access. And that is all something that as a city you are welcome to reach out to us, and we can we'd be happy to work with you on. We also have, again, a lot of data here at SCAG. The regional data platform, which is access for your city at no cost to use any planning tools and data that they might need. That includes, demographic data, GIS training, data sharing or mapping assistance, and Toolbox Tuesdays, which are a free training program that we can offer to your staff, which provides a wide range of practical skills and knowledge for local planners. All of these classes are free, and I believe most sessions provide AICP certification for your planning staff. Almost to the end here. Next slide. Oh, at the end. So I know that was quite a bit of information. SCAG is not the most easy to digest and comprehend. So I hope I didn't go through all of that too fast, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have any comments or questions?
Great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just actually wanted to, I just realized I wanted to make one more note that the Paramount's regional council member, so the elected official that represents you on our board is Ray Hamada from Bellflower. So if you also have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to him as well.
Thank you. Next is an update about the partner organizations that provide mental health assistance in our community. John, may we have that report, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. With so much attention given to mental health these days, it is a serious crisis. We are looking for ways to enhance this type of service to our residents. Working with our nonprofit partners, we've come up with some ideas that we'd like to share with you. So here's David Johnson, our Community Services Director, to go over this. Dave?
Thank you, John. Mayor and council members. So just a quick update on the nonprofit groups that the City Council provided additional funding through the one-time CMFA funds. So starting with Pathways Hospice, we will be placing, or Pathways will be placing a social work intern at our senior center. They'll be there once a week to develop relationships with our seniors and identify areas of need so that additional resources can be either brought in or a referrals made to assist our seniors. This is something we've been looking and wanting for a while, and now it's finally coming to fruition, and we should see it roll out in September. Pathways is also back with Paramount Unified School District to assist students and families with grief and bereavement counseling that was curtailed during the COVID-19 pandemic. Community Family Guidance Center, we've worked closely with. We are about to roll out their PPP program, which is Positive Parenting Program. This will be for our Paramount Unified School District families and residents that have children up to age 12 years old to help them identify any social, emotional, or mental health needs for their children and how to access the Community Family Guidance Center's counseling services. This program also will kick off in September when we're offering classes, or their classes will be offered in English and Spanish and consist of 3 two-hour sessions over a 3-week period. The city will be providing childcare for families at the locations which we're offering this program. Sukasa is looking to place a counselor in the city for on-site counseling access for persons dealing with domestic abuse. This would entail reoccurring hours several times a month. We have the option of placing the Sukasa staff member at a city facility or at another location. They're also piloting a domestic abuse program for school-age children at Avalon School on Catalina Island. Once they have this program worked out, at an operational level, we anticipate inviting them to present this at an ad hoc meeting in the near future to see if this will provide usefulness at our Paramount Unified School District schools. Now, you can identify here that we have our program for our seniors, 55 and up. The Community Family Guidance Center does counseling. Actually, they do counseling up to age 18, but once you're in the program, they actually can go up to age 24. But the PPP really is aimed at those children 12 and under and helping those families. And then Sukasa obviously is broadly for domestic violence across the board. So there is an age gap here that we're looking at. Oh, I'm having trouble too. There we go. And then we also need to make sure that we're marketing that these resources exist for our community. So you'll soon see on social media, we'll be posting flyers for all these groups on a recurring basis to make sure that our community knows they exist. But in terms of that service gap, we are kind of missing that 18 to 55. There is actually a counseling service in town. It is not a nonprofit. It's called Hope for Healing Counseling. We know about them because of the people who actually operate it. They are both former principals for Paramount Unified School District, and one is a former administrator as well for Paramount Unified School District. It's Alma San Miguel and Manuel San Miguel, which I think a lot of you know. They run a counseling service in town. It's over here at Kindred Hospital. So Yesenia and I sat down with Manuel, and Manuel's, they're just very passionate people, and they really want to help. So they do a lot of counseling services, referrals through medical or insurance programs. We did talk to them about possibilities that they could provide some pro bono services if we do come across an issue that they could address. they will certainly assist us because they're just really good people. So we do have that actually in town. So we're really excited about that. Excited about that. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
My colleagues have any comments or questions, please?
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you, David. And at last but not least is a report on 2022 homeless census. John, would you please introduce the presenter, sir?
Yes, Madam Mayor. With a few weeks ago, I provided you with a copy of the homeless census report that I'm holding up here. Additionally, the City Council Subcommittee on Homelessness recently heard a very in-depth presentation about the census report from the consultant who conducted the census for us, who's with us tonight. And we felt that it would be very beneficial for the full City Council and the public as well to hear this presentation. So we're very happy with the level of detail that is in this report, and there's no doubt that this report will help us to direct services to where they are needed most. We're also proud to see that our total number of homelessness is down, and it shows that the resources that we've dedicated to this social issue has worked. It's paid off. It's not completely gone, the problem, but it has significantly been reduced. Over the last few years, we've done a lot to curb homelessness, as you know, in our community. So since 2019, homelessness has been reduced by 44%. So with us today is Mr. Matt Bates. He's the Executive Vice President for CityNet, who will go over the 2022 City of Paramount Homeless Census. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council for the time this evening. I'm looking forward to this presentation. What I'm going to present to you is a supplement to the full report that you've already received. So there'll be a time for Q&A at the end of the presentation, and if you have questions about either the full report or what I've presented here in the presentation, you can let me know. So what I want to do really is just talk a little bit about why we do the census and highlight some of the things that stood out to us as we reviewed the data. So the goals of the census were to identify a baseline number of individuals living without housing so that you can have that baseline against which to measure progress for any future interventions, and then also to determine the demographic assets, challenges, and other special characteristics. So I should say up front that this census is different than the countywide point-in-time count. It employs a different methodology, and we're able to spend more time and to ask more questions because we just have a smaller universe. We're just working with Paramount as opposed to the entire county of Los Angeles, which is geographically huge and huge with population. And so with the limitations that HUD requires for the point-in-time count, that's an important data set. But this data set that we've delivered, we believe because of the different methodology and the amount of time that we've spent, can provide some more accurate local data. So about the census, we sent teams out on the early morning of May 24th and in the late evening of May 26th. We had worked with the city to map the city ahead of time to create what we call hotspot maps so that when the teams went out, they could make most efficient use of their time. And we sent teams of case managers from other contracts that CityNet has that were experienced not only in homeless services but in data collection through the census with local law enforcement and city staff who were experts in homelessness. So looking at the 2022 census, this is a kind of a heat map of the unsheltered geography of the homeless neighbors that we encountered. So we used a technology on an app on the phones that accesses the GIS technology of the phone, and it drops a pin. Now there are 59 dots on the map. They may overlap because if there were two people in the same location, it may look like one if anyone's counting those. But just as a pause, what I see having, CityNet, we've been contracted by over 40 cities now in Southern California to do these kinds of city censuses, and twice have done the Orange County point-in-time count, where we use the same methodology and the same technology. And so having looked at hundreds of these maps, I can tell you that looking at this, what this tells me is that you've got a transient homeless population as opposed to a homeless population that's clustered around a few encampments. So if you were to look at a map, let's say Newport Beach. In Newport Beach, that's an example where their homelessness in Newport Beach is clustered in two areas primarily. One down by the pier, and then another in the northwest part of the city up by the airport and in an industrial section of the city. And so if you were to look at the heat map of Newport Beach, all the dots would be clustered around those two areas. But what we see here is that on your thoroughfares, running through the city, they're kind of geographically distributed along those thoroughfares. And so, again, to me, that suggests that you've got people that are moving in and out of the city on a fairly regular basis, and that what you have here is not just a local problem, but it's a regional issue that needs to be addressed from a regional perspective. And maybe I could get the next slide. I seem to be running out of juice. So the composite, this is, we always do a composite of homeless neighbors in the city, and recognizing that every homeless neighbor, if you go back to the previous slide, the composite, yeah, there we are. Recognize that every homeless person is a unique individual, and their journey into homelessness and journey out of homelessness is going to be unique to them. But that said, if we compile all of the answers to the demographic data, the highest frequency responses here in Paramount, the typical homeless, unsheltered individual was a Hispanic or Latino male between the ages of 45 and 54 who sleeps in Paramount and has been homeless for a year or more. Next slide. If you look at the age of the homeless population, there's the distribution. Again, this is fairly standard for what we would typically want to, what we would typically see homeless neighbors in their 50s. Thing to keep in mind, keep an eye on, that we always want to be mindful of is the tail ends of that spectrum. So the 18 to 34, you've got transitional age youth from 18 to 24, and like anything else, early interventions are so important because it's more humane and more efficient over time to intervene early than to deal with chronic homelessness that's been, issues can kind of stack up and pile up over time. And then the other thing is to look at the 65 plus. All across Southern California, we're seeing an aging homeless population, and from what we know about health outcomes for just by living homeless, that's something to be concerned, and collectively, we need to look at interventions for that population as well. Next slide. In terms of gender, so you've got 76%, 77% male, 21% female, 2.3 transgender. We also asked for other non-binary or other types of gender, but these are the ones that we had the answers to. And again, this is right in the range of what we would expect. So next slide. The duration of homelessness, as we mentioned, the typical case, again, put an asterisk by typical, but the composite is been homeless for more than a year, and you can see that represented here. But I also look at the less than, if you take the 2 years and you add that together, 2 years or less, where you've got 41, 42% if you add that together. And typically that's what we see, about 40 to 50% of the homeless population is within the last 2 years. And so what that suggests to me is that, as the city is engaged in interventions with homelessness, you're really hitting a moving target, because there are people falling into homelessness all the time. And so you could take all the people that are homeless at the time that we did the census and get them off the streets. But in 2 years, what this tells me is that there would be, another 40 to 50% of that number back on the streets. Not that same population, but people that have fallen into homelessness, because you're just trying to, again, address the people that are on the streets today, but also to prevent and divert those that are housed today, but that are very insecure in their housing. They're spending a disproportionate amount of their income on their housing. Maybe they're doubled up. Maybe they're living in motels. Maybe they're living with their, couch surfing. And maybe they're living in garages or other other parts of buildings that are not intended for human habitation. And they're the candidates for being homeless down the line. Again, which just points to the need for an ongoing response to homelessness. Next slide. We asked a number of community ties questions. So one of the things, as you look at the full report, in one of the appendices, we list all of the questions that we asked. And we did that in a very intentional fashion. The first 25 questions or so, 25 questions, are all standard questions in the sense that they will align with the HUD questions that are asked during the point in time count. And so that's meant so that this data set can be complementary and viewed against and synthesized with the HUD data sets that you get from for the point in time count from LA County. The last 5 to 7 questions we have, we worked with the city to identify questions that you might particularly want asked, and a number of those questions had to do with community ties. And so there's a number of charts and graphs in your report on community ties, and we'll touch on some here. I want to preface those questions with the reality that there is no national standard that would establish community ties for homeless neighbors to a particular municipality. If there was, we could ask the question in that way. And that's important because Paramount, like most cities, they have programming and they're interested and willing to take care of their own. Their own citizens that fall into homelessness. It's very common for local municipalities to want to care for those individuals. And what most communities don't want to do, and it's totally understandable, is they don't want to become a magnet that would draw residents from outside of their communities, from other communities, and take care of those. And so, therefore, questions about community ties, who do we need to serve, and who belong to others, and they should be taking care of them, become very important. Lacking a national standard to establish community ties, what we do is ask a number of questions to kind of just illuminate the issue, illuminate your reality here in Paramount. So one of the questions we asked was, where do you usually sleep? And you can see, the overwhelming majority normally sleep in Paramount. Remember, we went early morning and late evening, and so very often we were dealing with people that were just, waking up from where they'd been sleeping, or were getting ready to go to bed for the night here in the city of Paramount. Next slide. We asked the question about last permanent residence. And so, what I'd like to point out here is that typically communities are suspicious about the homeless neighbors that are contained within their geographic borders. They're suspicious in the sense that they recognize some of them as their own, but they're always worried that there's others that are coming from outside the community. So this is very common when we work in coastal cities in Southern California. As you can imagine, everybody thinks, well, if I was homeless, what I would do is I'd go down to the beach, and that's where I'd spend all my time. What we find over and over when we do this is that about 75% of the population of the people that we ask this question to, they identify the city that they're in as their last permanent residence, or one of the bordering cities in a nearby cities. So that's why we collected Bellflower, LA, Compton, Downey. We were looking at where they were located. We also if they gave an answer like, let's say Avalon, that was mentioned earlier. It's uncommon, but let's say they did, that would be another LA city. If they said Fresno, that would be outside LA, but inside California. If they said Omaha, Nebraska, then that would be out of state. And so we were able to compile those other responses into those other categories. Next slide. We asked for ties to Paramount. Do you have any community ties to Paramount? The specific language, if you're interested in that, we reprinted the questions as they were asked in one of your appendices as well. But the overall ties to Paramount, again, 80% had some tie either through family, last permanent residence, they grew up here, they went to school here, they have or have had employment here, and only 20%, again, were not able to demonstrate ties to Paramount. And again, that's very consistent with what we would expect to find on that category. Next slide. So in summary of the community ties, this is kind of the summary statement. And again, all of these data points are listed during the in the appendices. The one that we didn't talk about was that 63% of respondents normally stay in Paramount during the day. And so we asked that question of not only where do you normally sleep at night, but also where do you tend to sleep in your days? And that's because we're trying to capture maybe people that sleep in another city, but they're in Paramount during the day either for work or for other reasons. They've got family here, or other reasons that maybe to access maybe health care or other business that they have in the city, but they normally sleep somewhere else. And then vice versa, those that sleep here normally during the night, but they spend their days somewhere else. So next slide. We asked about people, did they desire resources? And so we asked the question, are you interested in case management? And so that first column on the left of the screens or on your sheet then is case management. Now the 9.3% already enrolled, so they told us, yes, we're interested. In fact, we've already got a case management relationship with the local agency. An additional 51% said that they were interested in case management. So that 60-40 split overall. The shelter is an interesting one to us, where 40% said they were interested in shelter. Normally that is, and I would say that's consistent with the cities that we've done censuses in LA County. Outside of LA County, you would see that flipped. About 60% would say that they're interested in shelter, and 40% would say no. And we've thought a lot about that as an agency, why that is, and I think a lot of it has to do with there's lingering negative perceptions about homeless shelters here in LA County that don't exist in other counties. So LA County has been dealing with homelessness for a lot longer than, let's say, Orange County or Riverside County, San Diego County. And so a lot of people, when they think of, a lot of just the general public, when you ask them to think of a homeless shelter, they picture in their mind Skid Row. And they picture large congregate shelters and people milling around outside and very dangerous kind of environment, places that you wouldn't want to be caught alone after dark. And the homeless neighbors share those same perceptions. And so it's a bit unfair because within the last 10, 15, 20 years even, new shelter models have emerged. And so very much the job of the case manager and the street outreach worker is to educate the client on the realities of what shelters look like today, because the systems have improved, and there are lots of different models here in LA County that are accessible to homeless neighbors that don't have those negative connotations of that we associate with the Skid Row shelters. So that's it's an interesting little dynamic, but it also points to the job that's required of the outreach worker and the case manager here. Next slide. So our recommendations, again, the goal of this census was not to provide you with recommendations as much as to just give you a sense of the reality of homelessness that you're facing. But certainly I think we can safely say that investment yields results. The Sheriff's Department here in Los Angeles County has worked very hard on homelessness training and a focus on homelessness and how to engage homelessness. And we're grateful for the partnership with the Sheriff's Department here in Paramount in the implementation of this census. And we're very impressed with their knowledge and the rapport that they shared with the homeless neighbors on the street. And I think that's because of the training and focus that they've had. Local outreach and engagement, and also COVID-19 investments. That's been one of the silver linings of the COVID-19 pandemic, is that there are homeless neighbors that would otherwise be homeless here in Paramount tonight, but that are housed tonight because of COVID-19, because that released funding from the federal government and from the state to get people into housing, and they have stayed housed. And so that's again, the long-term need of all the interventions would point to housing. Next slide. So again, we want to thank all the partners that came together, including the homeless neighbors themselves. It's important to remember that all of the questions that we asked were, the responses were voluntary. Nobody had to talk to us. They weren't going to get in trouble. There was no enforcement that was taking place. And so, they shared their information with the teams because, with the hope that it would help to inform resource allocation that would then connect them to resources in the long run. The LA County Sheriff's Department, the Paramount Public Safety Department, City of Paramount, very much a group effort, and CityNet was proud to be part of it. And then I think we're towards the end here with the next slide. Yeah, so that concludes my presentation, and I will open it up for any questions that you may have.
Do my colleagues have any questions or comments, please?
I just have a quick comment, because I know when you presented this at the ad hoc, did the numbers come out for LA County or not of yet? I know we were waiting on that, right, to see what their numbers were compared to us. They haven't?
Yeah, they were not out as of the time of the ad hoc.
Okay.
And I don't believe they've been.
Yeah, they haven't been released yet. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else? No? Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. Our next item is very timely and related to the homeless census. Mr. City Manager, may we have the report on the agreement with the Salvation Army Bell Shelter, sir?
Yes, Madam Mayor. As you mentioned, this next item is timely. It's also related to the previous one that you just heard. And this was also presented to the Subcommittee on Homelessness. We have an opportunity here to reserve 12 beds at a homeless shelter in Bell for our homeless neighbors. We're proposing to use ARPA funds that are designated for this purpose. And with that, I'll turn it over to our Public Safety Director, Ms. Maggie Matson, who will walk you through the item. Maggie?
Thank you very much, John. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. Before you this evening is a proposed agreement with the Salvation Army Bell Shelter for fiscal year 2022 to 2023. Since 2019, the City of Paramount has seen its homeless population decrease from 105 individuals in 2019 to 85 in 2020 to 59 in 2022. This 44% reduction in individuals experiencing homelessness since 2019 can be attributed to our City Homeless Plan, which has served as a roadmap on how we service those struggling with homelessness, as well as our expanded partnerships with nonprofit organizations and our daily outreach efforts in connecting our homeless neighbors to service providers. Based on CityNet's presentation, the results of the 2022 Paramount Homeless Census suggest that a significant portion of the surveyed population expressed interest in services such as case management at 51%, shelter services at 40%, and outreach services also at 40%. To continue to reduce the number of individuals experiencing homelessness on the streets of Paramount, it is vital to partner with a local shelter to have shelter beds reserved for Paramount homeless neighbors. Too often, city staff encounters homeless neighbors who desire shelter placement, but a shelter bed is unavailable. With a secured agreement, public safety personnel would be able to follow a 3-step process when conducting homeless outreach. Step 1 would entail street engagement for those homeless neighbors willing to accept the shelter services. Step 2 would be arranging transportation by either contacting a sheriff deputy or simply by having the outreach provider provide the transportation. And finally, step 3, which would entail a warm handoff to the Salvation Army Bell Shelter staff. Oh, excuse me. Securing a shelter service will help address a critical gap and offer a safe place and supportive resources for individuals experiencing homelessness. By partnering with the Salvation Army Bell Shelter, the City of Paramount would reserve a total of 12 shelter beds for Paramount homeless neighbors only. The Salvation Army Shelter is only 8 miles from Paramount, allowing willing participants to still be close to their support system while being sheltered. Each participant will receive 3 daily nutritious meals, case management, employment search assistance, and long-term housing navigation. Other benefits and services offered include state-licensed substance abuse treatment, individual and group therapy, referrals for mental health services, an on-site mobile clinic, medication management, library and computer access, vocational assistance, and life skill classes. I do apologize. As far as the fiscal impact, the cost to enter this agreement with the Salvation Army Bell Shelter is $207,252 for the year. This would allow us to secure 12 dedicated beds specifically for the City of Paramount. A budget allocation to cover the cost of this agreement is included in the adopted fiscal year 2023 budget. This budget allocation is funded through the city's American Rescue Plan Act, also known as ARPA. With that, it is recommended that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor or city manager to enter into the agreement with the Salvation Army Bell Shelter in the amount of $207,252. This does conclude my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions you may have. I would also like to note that we have Mr. Steve Lytle, who's the director for the Salvation Army Bell Shelter, on standby in case you have specific questions related to the shelter services.
My colleagues have any comments or questions?
I don't have one for the shelter. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Councilmember Lemons. But I'm just like thinking long term. So this is for 1 year.
Yeah.
So what do we do year 2?
Well, that is a very great question. And I think this is truly a stepping stone in moving towards the right direction. In a couple of months, we are preparing to bring before you our next efforts when it comes to our city homeless prevention plan. So we are coming to our 5th year. I think this really just gives us the opportunity to start that immediate assistance. Again, it's been noted that for the past several weeks, we do have homeless neighbors that come to the Paramount substation asking for assistance. And, you know, we have all hands on deck. Everybody's trying to call and secure a bed. But unfortunately, due to the limited resources, sometimes we have to let them know that we'll reach out to them once we're able to make that connection. I think this agreement would truly be able to give us that opportunity to house those that are truly in need at the moment. And we will continue to do everything we can to try to secure something closer and even look at other concepts, which, you know, some of you have been part of visiting the tiny home villages, safe parking proposals. Not that I'm saying that that's, you know, something that can happen overnight, but I think that this at the moment would truly be a successful step moving forward rather than telling someone that we just don't have something in place at the moment.
Maggie, I 100% agree with you. I think we all hear this when we go to our regional meetings, is that we have to take care of our own city by city, because if not, they just transfer from city to city. So great job, you guys, putting this together. So thank you.
Do we just have enough ARPA funds for 1 year?
Madam Mayor, may I just go into the budget details so I can answer the question related to the budget? We're actually doing 2 separate homeless outreach components through ARPA and Home ARP. Through ARPA, we have a little less than $1 million. And through Home ARP, I believe we're roughly around 800,000, if I'm not mistaken. But we do have budget allocations to be able to do at least, 3 to 5 years, depending on when we're given the direction that we have to spend the monies.
And so I was going to ask about that, and then the home one you mentioned, that doesn't have anything to do with the Measure H funds, right?
No, these 2 budget allocations have nothing to do with Measure H. Just so you know, Measure H, has been actually, it's now being managed by the COG. So all the funding for the various cities went into one single pot, and they're gonna determine what they're gonna do with those funds at a regional level instead of focusing on independent cities or entities. We were very fortunate to have received some Measure H funding in the past, and that's how we were able to get the homeless plan together. But moving forward, it is to my understanding that the COG is going to be overseeing the funding with Measure H. taxes.
So with the COG overseeing it, they're not going to disperse to individual cities then? Just any facility or program that serves regionally? Is that what you're saying?
From my understanding, I think the goal is for them to do something regional rather than having the county specifically, fund specific cities independently. And again, we were able to take advantage of that at the beginning, but just recently, from my understanding, it's any Measure H funding is now being overseen by the COG.
Well, we'll just have to make sure our representative, reports back to us and stays on top of it for COG, because could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. I think that, letting individual cities do what they need to do with that type of funding is important. I wasn't even a fan of how little we got of the Measure H funds, considering what we paid in as a city. But as I said, we'll have to see how COG does with that. And then I just wanted to say thank you to the staff for making sure that incorporated in the agreement were so many of the things that we discussed at the subcommittee level, like the sobriety not being an issue, having access to the mental health care and the physical health care aspect, employment, training and opportunities, and future housing. So it's all incorporated in there. You listen to us. We appreciate that, and I hope this is going to make an impact on our community.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Lemons.
And Madam Mayor, just a point of clarification, for the home art money, we do have a balance of $1 million, and that's good until 2030.
Okay. Annette, do you have?
No, I don't.
Okay, I had a question. So this is effective immediately. So the bids are available like tomorrow.
Once the agreement goes through,
Yes.
it would be
So then
effective
it
as
would
of August.
Okay.
And it's going to be up until June 30th of 2023.
Okay. So it wouldn't be from August to August. It'd be August to June.
That's correct, Madam Mayor. So we're basically, if you look at the agreement, it does make a notation that we would start the contract in August, and it's going to run fiscally. So the contract will come to end June 30th, 2023.
It says June
So it's
20th.
a fiscal year. John.
Yeah, on the contract it says June 20th. I don't know if that's a typo. June
Probably a
20th
typo.
of 2023.
We'll have to correct that to make sure it has the right one.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
why
I
was asking.
apologize for that.
Okay, that's right. Okay. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you for this wonderful report.
I'll move the item, Madam Mayor, with the correction, with the date correction in the contract.
Yes, ma'am. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Heidi, may we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Delgadillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Aguayo? Not present, sorry. Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes, of course. We're going to move on. May we have the report on Resolution 22042, authorizing an emergency contract for the landscape maintenance services, sir?
Yes, ma'am. This next item is something that I've been informing you about over the past few weeks. It's in regards to our contract for landscape services. We were recently informed by our landscape services contractor, Brightview, that they needed an increase in the rate, or they would need to terminate their agreement with us. So the action we're asking the City Council to take will ratify the necessary change in landscape contractors that would be made to keep the city looking clean and healthy. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Public Works Director, Ms. Adriana Figueroa, who will walk you through the item. Adriana?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, in December of 2020, following a solicitation process, the City Council awarded a contract for landscape maintenance services to Brightview. The contract was for a 2-year term ending in December of 2022. On June 14th, we received a letter from Brightview demanding an additional 15% increase to the contract amount per month in order to continue to provide services to the city. They cited increased operational costs, inflation, and a tight labor market as the reasons for their demand for an increase in fees. The letter also stated that if the city is unable to provide the additional cost, that Brightview will discontinue services and terminate the agreement effective August 8th. Brightview has ceased all landscape maintenance services in the city, with their last day being Saturday, August 6th. We have begun the process of updating the prior request for proposals, or RFP, for landscape maintenance services and we're scheduled to release that RFP next month. Landscape maintenance is both a high priority and an essential public service for the residents, and as such, the city must continue to provide these crucial services to ensure that the aesthetics of our landscape is properly maintained. Pursuant to Public Contract Code Sections 20168 and 22050, in the case of an emergency, the city may pass a resolution by a fourth-fifth vote of its members declaring that the public interest and necessity demand the immediate expenditure of public money to safeguard life, health, or property, provided that the city makes a finding that the emergency will not permit a delay resulting from a competitive solicitation for bids, and that the action is necessary to respond to the emergency. The attached resolution identifies that the abrupt termination of the current landscaping contract by Brightview is an emergency as defined in Public Contract Code Section 1102, and authorizes the city manager to procure emergency landscape maintenance services on a temporary basis until the RFP process is complete. And so with that, it is recommended that the City Council read by title only and adopt resolution number 22042. That concludes my presentation, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? No?
Move the item.
Second.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Heidi, may I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Delgadillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes. Thank you. Okay. We'll move on. May we have the report on a professional service agreement with Hazen and Sawyer for additional engineering services for the water well project, John?
Yes, Madam Mayor, this next item is related to the ongoing construction and permitting for Water Well 16. We're almost there. So our Public Works Director, Adriana Figueroa, again, will handle this item. Adriana?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor and members of the council, we have started the process of amending the city's existing drinking water permit with the State of California's Drinking Water Division to include the operations of our new water well, Well 16. The state is requiring several analysis and related technical reports in order for them to issue the necessary operational permit. Hazen and Sawyer is a highly experienced firm with experts in water quality and treatment systems. They have prepared technical analysis and reports for various water agencies to facilitate the required operational permits through the state's Drinking Water Division in the past. Given their level of expertise, we have requested a proposal from them for these services. Their proposal for the necessary analysis, reports, and certification requirements is a not-to-exceed amount of $120,000 and will be based on time and materials. Under our purchasing policy, City Council approval must be obtained for retaining professional services that are $40,000 or greater. Also, it should be noted that professional services, which often include highly specific areas of expertise, are not subject to the competitive bidding process. Given that this amount was not included in the adopted fiscal year 23 budget, an appropriation would need to be approved by the City Council. Staff is recommending the use of available funding from the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, as it meets the funding criteria under this program. If approved, the adjustment will be reflected in the mid-year budget. With that, it is recommended that the City Council appropriate $120,000 of available ARPA funds and approve an agreement with Hazen and Sawyer in the amount of $120,000 for engineering services related to the Well 16 permitting requirements. That concludes my presentation, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Adriana. Do my colleagues have any comments or questions? Okay.
Make a motion
Is
to
there a
approve.
motion for approval?
Second.
Heidi, may I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Delgadillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes. Okay, we'll move on. May we have the report for the MOU for the Youth Activities League? John?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we all know how successful the Youth Activities League, or YAL as we call it, has been at Spanny Park. In fact, we have a waiting list of kids wanting to get into the program. The agreement, or MOU, with the county before you deny is up for renewal, and it includes grant funds to run the program. So with that, here is Mr. Daniel Azarias, the management analyst in public safety, who will walk you through this item. Hi, Danny.
Good evening. Thank you, John. Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. This time I'm actually going to talk. So, this
Wait,
item.
sorry to say, we don't really need to hear thank you.
Approved. No. This item is for approval of the Memorandum of Understanding (MOU) with the Los Angeles County Probation Department for the Youth Activities League, also known as the YAL. Okay. For some background, the YAL is a nonprofit with a mission to bridge the gap between the community and law enforcement. In September 2021, with a partnership with the City of Paramount, Los Angeles County Sheriff Department, and the Los Angeles County Probation Department, the YAL opened its doors at Spanny Park. The YAL program offers a variety of services 100% free of cost to YAL participants. Services.
Hey, Danny, I think the slide advanced.
Oh.
Sorry, there you go.
Oh, wow. Okay. Anthony, if I'll just say next slide. Thank you, sir. So the YAL program offers a variety of services 100% free of cost to all YAL participants. Services include fitness and martial arts, excursions, life skills and mentoring, arts and crafts. In addition, with a partnership with the PEP program and the Recreation Department, the YAL offers homework assistance. Next slide, please. Through the Los Angeles County Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act, JJCPA, the city was awarded a grant for the YAL program. The MOU with the Los Angeles County Probation Department details how the city plans on using the grant funds for the new fiscal year. The MOU is for $185,009 for the YAL program for the period of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Next slide, please. Here's a cost breakdown of how we plan to use the funds. Civilian contractors include the fitness/martial arts coach, the program lead, and the tutor/academic advisor. For operations, we included excursions, professional services, and equipment and supplies. For administrative costs, that is a requirement for the grant, and we will be working with probation to reallocate those funds to professional services. Next slide, please. Here are some photos of the martial arts class at Spanny Park Learning Center. A great way to get fitness, self-confidence, and self-defense. Next slide, please. Here are some photos of some of the excursions that the participants went to, the Museum of Tolerance, Volcom headquarters, and a beach trip at Bolsa Chica State Beach. Next slide, please. Here's another photo of kind of a fun excursion, Knott's Scary Farm, as well as LA ice skating at LA Live. Next slide, please. And here's a fun photo of just the YL community of the kids doing activities at the Spanny Park. Also, when the Santa train was going by in that neighborhood, we walked them over, took a photo with our former lieutenant, as well as some SAO deputies and other fun activities at the center. Next slide, please. So with that, it is recommended that City Council approve and authorize the City Manager to execute the MOU with the Los Angeles County Probation Department for the Youth Activities League, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Danny. Do my colleagues have any comments or questions, please?
I just have something really quick, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I heard this is a really great program. Is there still a waiting list? I understand there's a waiting list for this program now, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
So what we did, we sent out letters to all the current participants to see if they are interested in coming back. We got approximately 32. We are using the same formula for ratio as STAR, which is 1 to 20, and with their deputy as well as the current 2 contractors, that's 60. And with our wait list, we actually sent out letters to all the wait lists for them to come. So we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity. And in addition, we were actually expecting $62,525 this year, but probation also loves the program. So they asked, hey, we're going to try to roll over the funds that were left over from last year. To our wonderful surprise, they went all the way back to 2019 to 2020. Wow. So we got over $100,000 unexpected funds this year. So that's why we really want to make sure everything goes back to the program, get an additional body. We can actually extend it to 80 participants to the 1 to 20 and get another civilian contractor.
Very good. Thank you, Danny.
You're welcome.
Danny, how many were on the waiting list? Do you mind?
So there were over 40, but similar to recreation, I know my recreation background keeps kicking in. We use the field formula. So in order for them to get our soccer fields or sports fields, they have to be 75% Paramount residents, and the 25 can be non-Paramount residents. We're mirroring that with 75% have to be Paramount residents, and then the 25 can be the other Lakewood station serving cities, Artesia, Bellflower, Hawaiian Gardens, and Lakewood. So when we got our wait list, a lot of them were non-Lakewood station, as well as, a majority. So there was around, I want to say 19 after filtering out. We had over 40 after we looked at it again of Paramount residents. It was around 19. So we want to make sure that Paramount community members are being served before, and then we'll open up our doors to other non-Paramount residents.
Thank you. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the MOU?
So moved.
Have a
Second.
second. Heidi, roll call, please.
Councilmember Delgadillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes. Next is the consideration of the financial support levels for the Youth, Sports, and Arts Scholarship Program. John, may I have a report, please?
Yes, you may, Madam Mayor. This next item involves a matter that the City Council had requested. It's regarding the income limits for our youth and arts for our youth sports and arts scholarship program. Staff was directed to return with parameters that will allow for someone to receive 100% financial assistance for fees related to arts and sports. We found a way to get this done with some potential extremely low-income residents. So with that, I'll turn it over to Community Services Director David Johnson, who will handle this item. Dave?
Thank you, John, Mayor, and council members. So I'm going to take another crack at this, and hopefully we've got something that will meet the goals that the council set out for us. So this, again, goes back to 2020 in December, where the council did establish the initial program for youth sports leagues. Again, there was a $30,000 budget placed in community promotion for the scholarship program. And at that time, it was only open to residents participating in the independent youth sports leagues for their recreation seasons. At the May 17th meeting, the council did request that we come back and add in the arts program component, which we did. And at the council meeting on July 12th, the council did approve that arts component, but did request that we go back and look at those income limits and do some revisions. I was going to say I'm really lucky I have the only working mouse, but that apparently is not true. Well, I think there's one more. Go back. No? Oh, okay. All right. So advance the slide. There we go. So the eligibility for the program is based on they must prove that they're either a resident or attend a Paramount Unified School District school. We do check the child's birth certificate or other documentation showing the child's age. It is only available to those 17 years of age or younger. And we do look at their proof of income or other financial assistance that they're receiving. Next slide. So the scale that we originally proposed, again, was based on the federal HUD guidelines for the LA area. There were 3 levels: extremely low, very low, and low income limits. And so they went from 50% down to 30% scholarships if you fell in within those income ranges and those family sizes. Next slide, please. So what we're proposing is a new scale, but what we did is when we did a little more research, we found out that California Housing and Community Development actually uses the federal HUD guidelines, but they have I guess they started this in 2021, they added a 4th level that is this acutely low income level. So we added that income level. But I want to point out here is what we're looking at here is only employment income. So a family, a single mom with 2 kids who is receiving, food assistance, housing assistance, any assistance of that nature, that's not included in what we look at. We're only looking through this guidelines on employment income at this point. So what we have with the acutely low income limits, we're proposing if you fall into that income level with those particular family sizes, that will automatically trigger 100% scholarship. And then what we did is we kept the other 3 levels and we dramatically increased the percentages available to them. So the extremely low income level is at 80%, very low is at 70%, and the lowest, or the low income is the lowest percentage of 60%. So again, we're just looking at this as an income. We will not be looking at those other income sources. And again, throughout this entire process, we are retaining that feature that, again, a family can look at this and say, look, the 80% is great, but I still can't afford whatever's left over. That triggers then that will be brought to my attention. We'll sit down with that family and find out what they can afford, if anything. And again, I still retain that ability if we need to make it 100% scholarship because they don't have other means, even though they only qualify for, say, 80, 70, 60%. I still have the ability to waive that and make it 100% based upon their particular circumstances. Next slide, please.
And before you move on,
Sure.
David, so you don't have to go back, I have a question on that slide. How come the income level for the more persons in the household goes up? Like you have to qualify more money. You know what I'm saying? Like it seems like a household of 8, they should be less than a household of 2. I just maybe don't understand the chart. Like it's saying acutely low, if there's 2 persons making $10,900, they qualify for 100%.
Right.
If there's a household of 8 persons, then they have to make 18,000 to qualify, less than 18,000. The more people that live, aren't you the poorer that you are, not the more wealthy?
Right,
that
and
you are?
so if you take that income, you have $10,000 and divide it. There's only 2 people in the household. You have $5,000 per household. If you have 8 people in that household and it's 18,000, my math is like $2,500 per individual in the household. You are poorer.
Yeah, I guess. Well, so it doesn't mean that to qualify for the low income, the acutely low, if there's 2 persons, like you said, 10,900 is the low amount that qualifies them, right? If there's 8 persons, the low amount that qualifies them is 18,000.
Right.
What I'm saying is, how come the more persons there is, the higher the income level it takes to qualify? Shouldn't it be lower?
It may. Well, I understand your point, but going off those guidelines, they're indicating that household is even poorer than that 2-person household because they have less money per individual in that household.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's what I don't see. Okay. You can explain it to me later.
Councilmember Lemons.
That you're saying 8 people. Okay, you've got it. You understand my.
Actually,
Man, you divide
our planning director, John Carver, is probably going to hate me, but this is modeled off of that HUD and, in this case, California's housing community development model. So he probably may have a lot of familiarity with how they apply this. But what I think they're saying here is that when you have an 8-person household, they're assuming that there's more than 2 people that are capably working. And so,
Yeah, but that's quite an assumption. So that's what it should be, working people instead of.
sure. And I just want
I know
to.
lots of households that there's 7 kids and 2 adults, or 5 kids and 2 adults. They're not. That's what was my question. Why are they assuming that because there's more people, there's more income?
Right. It's a very logical question. That's something for the
Okay, so
housing
I
and
was
community
reading
development.
correctly, because I wouldn't make that assumption. So okay.
So next slide. We will be marketing this. We will be putting out this is just a draft, so there's still more work to be done to it. But we will make sure that we're clear as to what those income limits are, and what qualification levels they meet. And then we'll certainly put a disclaimer on there that, again, we will work with any family that wants to make sure their child is able to play. We will make that very clear on this flyer. Next slide. So I just, again, want to reiterate the difference between the 2 programs, even though they're all part of the scholarship program. Youth sports and arts are going to be a little bit different. Youth sports generally operate off that one-time league fee. The arts programs will be generally ongoing monthly fees. And again, our eligible art programs are those dance, music, visual arts programs that either we directly offer as a city or through a city-sponsored instructional class program operated at a city facility. Next slide. So in summary, we don't see a fiscal impact because, again, the council did allocate a significant amount of money to the existing scholarship program. It is $30,000. And our recommended action is either to approve or modify the proposed revisions to the Youth Sports and Arts Scholarship Program. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Do my colleagues have any questions?
I have one question, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So, Dave, can you just remind us, how is it paid out to the league? Once it gets approved, when is it paid out to the league?
a youth league. So as they're doing registration,
Right.
if an individual comes to us and says, okay, I'd like to, here's my league fees, I'd like to apply for a scholarship, we then do our due diligence, we go through it, and then we will actually cut a check to the league, give that to the individual family to take to the league. So whatever balance they might owe, that's what they then process with the league.
Okay. So what if a child enrolls, we do all this, and then 3 months in, the child leaves the program? And it's a 6-month,
Are you talking
softball
about
league
the
or something like
sports or
this.
the arts side of it?
I'm sorry?
Are you talking about the arts or the sports side of it?
Either or.
Well-
We go ahead and we support a kid, but then maybe they don't, maybe they didn't like it, and they withdraw from the program.
We don't have a mechanism to monitor that. It is something, now, with the arts program, we will, because that is registration on a monthly
Correct.
basis.
Correct.
So if we see that they haven't registered, then we will not pay that monthly scholarship.
Got it. So for the arts,
And
we're good. It's just the
yeah,
sports
then
programs that's a little bit
When,
longer
when
out.
we,
that maybe-
yeah, when we do the arts side, we're going to qualify you that 1 year and assume nothing changes in your income for that year, but we'll requalify you every year for the arts side of it.
Makes sense. Okay.
Anyone else? Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
sorry. So explain that to me. So when you do the sports, you pay for a season, right? Is
Correct.
that what you're saying?
Correct.
And that with the arts programs, you
It's
pay like a
monthly.
monthly fee,
Correct.
right? So, but that could, so if it pays for the season, the expense is there anyway, right? Because they have to have their uniform and whatever.
Correct.
else,
But the
right?
thing of it is, if we're going to pay the scholarship out for a season that's like 3 or 4 months, and the kid shows up like 3 times and can be done.
Yeah.
So we would,
But I'm just saying that initial expense, that a lot of the expenses in equipment and uniforms, right?
which is the league pays for the uniform. So a
Yeah,
parent
so
would pay
the
for
league
like a
did
glove.
have an outlay of cost, absolutely, that
Mhm.
they're not going to be able to recoup if that child quits after a week.
Right, which is like insurances and stuff like that. Yeah.
But you pay it once for the season, so all that's initially expense. What I'm looking at is the question that Councilwoman almost brought up. There is no way, because all the fees are kind of incurred up front, to monitor it monthly, right? Is there? And
We-
because
we
you said
can-
we don't have one in place, but can there be one in place, or because most of the fees are up front, it's not possible with sports?
It's more difficult with the sports side. Again, the art side is easier because it is recurring monthly registration. The sports side is difficult because, again, as I already mentioned, that they did have upfront costs. They purchase uniform, they purchase insurance, they purchase gear, assuming a certain number of kids. So that is very difficult then to ask that league to give that back. And again, the initial part of this, remember, the leagues actually used to get direct funding from the city, so we backed that away and created a scholarship program. So that money is going still to support that league to run that program for those other children. So I'm not too worried about too many kids dropping out, to be honest with you. I think it still works out and it's money to support those independent youth leagues to operate those programs.
And did you guys discuss when you were putting this together the component that was raised by several of the council members about if it's 100% covered, then where's the input from, the commitment from the child or the parent? Did you look at some, service or volunteer item that they would have to do, like we just threw off the top, you have to stay and collect the balls or
duties.
pick up the field, or something that what was you guys had a term
Snack
that you
bar
used.
duties, or just so that there's skin in the game. So we
Yeah,
said, yeah.
that's something that's easier to work out with the youth independent youth sports leagues because they have those opportunities. It's going to be very difficult to do that with the nonprofits that run dance programs because they typically don't have that kind of activity to support their programs like a sports league would.
Well, I guess we can see how it goes for a year, and if there's a large dropout, and we know that we have to have, I think you guys said
Try it.
buy-in
That's
or
good, yeah.
something.
Yeah.
you
Do a
know,
trial run.
Buy-in because,
Skin in the
these are
game.
the
Skin in the
sports
game.
people,
Is there
and-
anything? Hashtag.
Certainly can come back with
Yeah.
after a year or so, or whatever determined time is necessary to bring back a report to council to show how it's functioning, how many people used it. If there were dropouts, if there were issues related to that, we certainly can report back on that.
And then the last thing is just going back to the chart again. I would assume, based upon my argument, that I think it's wrong to assume because there's more people in the household, there's more income. I don't think
And
that's
it may not.
necessarily the situation, that staff has the ability to make those common sense decisions. Like if they go, yeah, there's 8 of us, but 6 of them are children, and it's still just me and my husband working.
Well, again, if someone does not meet our guidelines on that chart, and needs additional assistance, all they have to do is raise a red flag, and comes to me, and we'll sit down and figure it out.
Okay, that's what I want to be comfortable with. Thank you, David.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Heidi, may we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Delgadillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes. Now, may we have the report on the agreement with the YMCA, John?
Yes, ma'am. We'd like to amend our existing agreement with the YMCA to include a competitive swim team. They move this opportunity from a private, for-profit type of league to a nonprofit setting with YMCA. David?
Thank you, John, Mayor, and council members. I'm going to ask for the next slide. Thank you. So the Los Cerritos YMCA, which is our YMCA that operates in the city of Paramount, they currently provide youth program services at our city facilities as of now. So we've got youth sports. They provide our recreation swim program at Paramount Pool, swim lessons at Paramount Pool. Now, in their contract, they also still have the after-school care. I'm leaving that in there. They were for a while running after-school care at Mariposa Center. That did not work out. They could not get enough kids to participate. I'd still like to keep it in the contract if that's something that it becomes viable later. What we're looking to do tonight is amend the agreement to increase their scope of services from the list that is above to also include a competitive swim team. So this competitive swim team would have Paramount kids, and they would participate in U.S. swim meets and local area YMCA. So as John referenced, there was a private group prior to COVID that the city actually ran a swim team up to 2013. But since then, up from 13 to about 2020, it was run by a private for-profit group. So we'd like to see this turned over to the YMCA, that national nonprofit agency with the national standards that they have for swim programs, and keep this as a YMCA pool site. So they run rec swim, swim lessons, and the competitive swim team. But they do have an advantage because of the local Ys around us. The Lakewood YMCA, Los Altos, and the Fairfield YMCA all actually have competitive swim programs. So in addition to USA Swim Meets, our program would be able to compete against those other local Ys, which would be exciting for them. Next slide, please. We currently do not see a fiscal impact. Again, if anybody wants to participate in the swim program, they're eligible for the scholarship program that the YMCA has. They'll be eligible for our sports scholarship program as well. So there are opportunities for families that can't afford this to get help from the Y and also through the city programs. We are recommending amending the agreement with the YMCA for use of city facilities for youth programming to include a swim team program. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, David. My colleagues have any questions or comments?
Mayor, are the residents from the swim team from Paramount, or is it from all cities that are able to
Well, again, we'll apply, in this particular case with the Y, we'll be applying that 75-25 rule.
75-25, okay.
Anyone else?
Move the item.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Heidi, may I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Delgadillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes. Now may we have the report on the changes to the use of the city's CMFA bond issuance fees.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Our last item is also something that the council had requested, and it involves a reappropriation of some of the funds that we received from the CMFA for the middle income housing project. And you recall we partnered with them early this year. If the council approves this tonight, this reappropriation of funds, we will use them to pay for a couple of fun, cool things. So I'll leave that excitement to Mr. Johnson to tell you what that's going to be. Dave?
Thank you, John. Mayor and council members. Next slide, please. So as background, the council approved the disbursement of the city's CMFA bond issuance fees in 3 ways. Money went to our community organizations like Sukasa Pathways and Community Family Guidance Center. It also provided supplies for our Paramount Arts in the Community program. We purchased some gift cards for the older kids. We purchased drawing arts kits for the younger kids. And then we also had in there $25,000 for Big Belly recycling trash cans that were going to go to our parks. Everything was purchased fine, no problem, or dispersed. We ran into a problem with the Big Belly trash cans. They, as everything else, they couldn't get them to us in time. Production issues, delays. So those are still out there waiting to be to arrive. So we have not received them yet. So what we'd like to do, because of that circumstance, we'd like to reappropriate the city's CMFA funds that were designated for those Big Belly trash cans to purchase the following. City coloring books. So some of those CMFA funds that we bought, those coloring books, we bought 200 for kits for 12 and under. We bought 200 for the 12 to 18 group. At Friday Night Paramount, the last one, we had a booth, and because we had the art walk, encouraging our residents to engage in the arts. We gave away all 200 of those 12 and under coloring books, and we gave, or I'm sorry, not coloring books, the art supplies, and then we gave away 100 of the 13 and up art supplies. So what we're looking at doing is, so let me get into that setted coloring book. So we're looking at purchasing a setted coloring book and supplies to replenish what we've already spent out, and then also do an end of summer event and use that $25,000 in those two ways. So let me go into a little more details, but I do mention that, I want to mention that the Big Belly trash cans would still be purchased, but we would move that funding source over to AB 939. Next slide. So on the coloring book, so a request from council was to come up with a city coloring book. Again, this whole effort that we're making to engage our kids in art, but this one actually has another advantage. It encourages our residents to be proud of their community and have some civic pride and engagement. So what we did is we found some what we thought were images from the city that have either landmarks, or they represent art, or they represent fun things we do in our community. So there's, the slide shifted. So I apologize for that. There are 16 images listed, and it's hard to see the ones on the bottom. For a total cost to create that coloring book, it would be 16 images, 8 pages with a cover and a back. To design that and print that would be about $7,000, and we'd like to purchase about $6,000 of the additional art supplies that we expended during Friday Night Paramount. Next slide, please. This would be a sample page, again, black and white, what you would typically see in a coloring book, and the kids get to use their artistic expression to color that in, and again, it's all representative of some aspect of the city of Paramount. Next slide. The end of summer event. So this is the other amount of money that we want to spend. The council did comment to us that they'd like to see something similar for the end of summer that we did when we reopened the pool for that kickoff. We are aiming for, if council approves, September 2nd. This is a Saturday. This is the last weekend that we'll have Recreation Swim, and it would go from 12 to 3. That's when Recreation Swim operates. This would then coincide with the free Recreation Swim weekends offered at Paramount Pool through Supervisor Hahn's office. They provided a grant to the YMCA to provide that. So that would be the last Saturday in which that grant is operating. So that day is free access to the pool, as long as you, again, pass their swim test. The transition, what we have there is, instead of holding the event directly on the pool deck, we'd like it to hold it in that lawn area adjacent to the pool area. So if you want to participate in this and not actually, because maybe you can't swim or you haven't had your parents sign off on the documents, you still can participate in this side of the event. If you want to swim and you're already clear to go swim, you can go back and forth between this event and Paramount Pools and have a great time that day. But again, for anybody can participate. Any kid that wants to come to the park can participate in the part that we're going to hold outside of the pool. So those items, we'd have a DJ. There would be food for purchase, but we would have free ice cream because every kid's got to have free ice cream. We would have fun lawn games, raffle prizes. We would have water slides. We would have a bubble area. We would have a foam area. Anything to get those kids just to, that's that last kind of day of summer. I mean, they're already back to school, but man, we got to have a last blast. So we're calling it Splash Bash, and they get to have a good time before they have to really go back to school and really dig in. And then you guys wanted the mermaid back, so we brought back the mermaid. She'll be there as well. But the total cost of that would be around $12,000. So combined, the $13,000 for the coloring book and art supplies, plus this event, is that additional $25,000 that we had allocated from CMFA funds that we'd like to move from Big Belly to these. Next slide. So just so you know, the Big Belly trash cans are something that we'll be implementing into our park system. So these are trash cans that are a little more advanced than your standard trash can. They are separated by recycling and regular trash. They do compaction of regular trash. They actually will let us know when they're full. They actually will communicate and let us know that they need to be emptied. Next slide. Our recommendation is that we do appropriate the $25,000 from the CMFA bond issuance fees in the general fund for the City of Paramount Youth Coloring Book and the end of year summer event, and then appropriate $25,000 from the available AB 939 funds for the Big Belly recycling trash cans. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
My colleagues have any questions?
I'll move the item.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please, Heidi.
Councilmember Delgadillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes. Now is the time for council members' reports. We'll start with our council member, Annette Delgadillo.
Yay. I attended our city's Heritage Parade and Heritage Festival, and I had such a good time. I wanted to thank the parade committee for their many months of hard work and preparation for planning a fantastic parade. To our Parks and Recreation, you knocked it out of the ballpark again. What an amazing festival it was. Thank you, David and staff. I attended the beautiful tree dedication ceremony for my dear friend, Linda Garcia. And finally, last Friday, I attended the senior luau at the community center. Our seniors were traditionally dressed up for the occasion, and they looked fabulous. I felt I was in Honolulu. A job well done to Magda and staff. Mahalo, everyone.
Okay. Let's go with Brenda.
She was looking at you, and then she said,
Councilmember Olmos, Brenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Just really quick on some committee updates. God, I feel like we were just here 2 weeks ago, but in that 2 weeks' time, we had so much going on. We had our executive board meeting for contract cities and also our public safety work group. We continue to work on ways to improve public safety, just as we saw the street racing presentation today. Also attended our League of California Cities swearing-in ceremony. Congratulations to Andrew Choi, who is our new LA County Division President, who is a mayor pro tem of Diamond Bar. I attended my first Celico meeting today, so that was all new to me. But it looks like they're adding another job fair in the fall. I do want to say some of the events that Councilmember Delgadillo had mentioned. Thank you to all the staff. You guys just rocked it. I mean, from Public Works, Public Safety, Parks and Rec. I mean, we had our Heritage Parade. We had our first car show with about 15 cars. I'll take it. You know, but everybody was just in place. Everything was so organized. And again, just kudos to all of you guys for doing that. Again, we also attended the POSD tree ceremony for Linda Garcia. Thank you for your 22 years, Linda. You'll never be forgotten. Yeah, back to school event on Saturday was amazing. We had all those kids lined for haircuts. Great success. We're going to make it bigger and better next year, right, Dave Johnson? And then, just kidding. And then again, Commissioner Barbecue, again, it was our Paramount Winter Wonderland, not winter, what was it? Alice in Wonderland. That was our Winter Wonderland. Great job, you guys. I'm already ready for Christmas. Is a train coming? Are we ready for that? That's all I have, Madam Mayor, but I do have something for John for staff comments. I know you did give us an update regarding the light intersection and Stater Brothers. If you could just provide an update to the community, either today or sometime, I'd greatly appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Thank you. I'm all done, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Peggy Lemons, please.
So the Heritage Fair was great, absolutely great, and along with Councilmember Delgadillo, thank you to the hardworking volunteers that work the parade. I hope we get a lot more residents out for next year's parade. It's a tremendous event. A lot of hard work goes into it, as well as goes into the Heritage Fair. And there was a dedication of a tree and a plaque for Linda Garcia, the former school board member. I did get some comments on social media from some members of the public saying that they wished it had been an event that was publicized to the public because they would have loved to have come and paid their respects to Linda. But I just want you to know that the tree is planted at the district office and the plaque's there. It's a beautiful tree. It's a beautiful plaque. Go on by, take a picture with it, pay your respects to Linda. I know that her family would be very touched by that. The back to school event, residents were extremely appreciative. I think it was wonderful that we were able to set, these children up, thanks to our sponsors, with their backpacks, some clothing, a pair of shoes. Thank you to all the hairdressers and the barbers who came and cut hair all afternoon and all day. And, Brenda's going light on you, say bigger next year. She told me in the gym. So this is 500, Peggy. Next year we have to do 1,000, right? And I said, oh yeah, sure, Brenda, 1,000, got it. So that's her real quota, David, just so that you can start getting prepared. And Andreas did a wonderful job keeping everything rolling that day. Thank you, Andreas, for a fantastic job. All of the departments, as they said, for the Heritage Fair, fantastic job. Leslie, the commissioner's barbecue, you did an amazing job with that. I love the theme. I thought it was so much fun. And, I tried to get my table to drink tea, but they were all drinking other beverages, so I wanted to have a little tea party in the spirit. So thank you all. Fantastic job. I tell everybody everywhere we have the most amazing staff anywhere in LA County, and I would put you up against any one of them any day of the week. You're fantastic.
Definitely.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Well, I attended similar events. I attended the California League Cities meeting and installation of the new the mayor of the city of Diamond Bar with Councilmember Olmos and Vice Mayor Aguayo. And yes, I attended the Paramount Heritage Parade and the festival, and it was great to see so many residents out and about on the parade. And I want to thank everyone who was involved with that, the Historical Society, all the volunteers, and also our deputy sheriffs. Thank you for trying to keep our traffic smooth and trying not to let residents in. And they were trying to sneak in through, a little shopping mall, but thank God our deputies and our staff told them, no, you can't come through here. You have to go back. So anyway, and I also attended the memorial for my good friend Linda Garcia. I was very touched and very honored to say a few words about her. And also with my council member Olmos, we attended the Pasadena Tournament of Roses Foundation, and we were able to see the unveiling of a nice, beautiful float that will be displayed in the Rose Parade. And I attended the senior luau, and I had a lot of fun. I danced about an hour away, so I danced with everyone. I was dancing in the middle of the dance floor, and then I had all these people dancing with me, which was great. I had a wonderful time. And also attended our last summer concert at our Friday night market, and got to see our first art show exhibit and walk. It was very successful. My granddaughters had a great time spending money. So, so they really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed helping and participating and just walking around and listening to the parents of the back to school backpack with my colleagues. It was an enjoyable morning to see all the kids excited, getting haircuts, and as my colleagues mentioned. And last, I attended the commissioner's barbecue. Thank you to all the staff. What a beautiful event. I walked in and I felt like I was at Disneyland. And I was at Alice in Wonderland. And it was just a beautiful. I know some of our male commissioners were expecting ribs and steak. And they said, oh, Velma, did you ask for this? And I said, no, sir. I did not ask for it. But they enjoyed it. They were very happy with their sit-down dinner and having our staff being our servers. But beautiful. And last but not least, I had several of our seniors at our luau. About five of them came up, 3 men, 2 ladies. And they came to tell me, we are so grateful. We are so grateful to the staff. We're grateful, they told me in Spanish and English, they're grateful for everything that the city of Paramount does for them. And they told me they wanted me to personally thank each council member for all the hard work that us 5 beautiful ladies are doing for them. They see a lot of difference. They see great things happening in Paramount. They see our landscape, even though we're having a little problem with it. But they told me, and especially one of our seniors, I'll call him a young man, he says, "You ladies are doing a great job." And he says, "Can I come to city council and tell you that?" I said, "I would appreciate it if you would come to city council and let us know what a great job we're doing." But everyone from the Parks and Recreation to public safety to public works to even a planning department. I mean, I hear about great things that are being approved in the neighborhoods. So thank you. Thank you to all of you. And our residents are noticing, even our seniors, even the kids are noticing the great things that are happening in Paramount. And even I have a couple of comadres that are telling me, "Oh, I heard you're having baseball leagues going on." I said, "Well, where did you hear that?" "Well, everybody knows Brenda, so that Brenda's spreading the word." So I said, "Okay, well, contact our council member, Brenda Olmos, and she would tell you
there
all
it is.
about the baseball league."
I know I'm getting a little nervous about this softball league because it's sounding very competitive. Like everybody's practicing, and I'm getting nervous now. It's supposed to be for fun. Parks and Rec. What, Dave? Go ahead.
You're afraid of a challenge?
No, bring
Former
it. We
president
got
of
this.
Paramount Girls Softball?
What
Really?
she's afraid of is herself. Anybody who gets in her way better head for cover.
And David, I just want to say yes, I'm in agreement with Brenda. We said we had 500. I would like 1,000 next year for back to school, sir. Okay, that's all I have. Mr. City Manager, do you have any comments from staff?
I do, Madam Mayor. I do have a few, as requested by Councilmember Councilmember Olmos, about the signal light on Alondra in front of Stater Brothers. Yes, we've been informed of a delay in getting the signal light up and running, which is bad news. We wanted it up sooner rather than later, as you know. The City Council approved the agreement with the company to install the signal light. We had a pre-construction meeting with them a couple of weeks ago, and they informed us that the signal light, unfortunately, would not be able to be installed until February of 2023, which is very disappointing. However, because of the supply chain issues, the poles and some of the equipment are on back order, so it's going to take a lot longer than when we had anticipated. As you know, the first part of the delay was the funding that we got from the state. We couldn't initiate the project until we had the money in hand, secured the money, went out to bid, and that's the news we got. So it's unfortunate, but the project's still moving on. We hope that it can be sooner, and we'll keep pushing it. As soon as the poles and the equipment come in, we'll have them get right to work on that. This week is Shop Paramount Week. We've been trying to make a big deal of it, a big splash on it on social media. We gave out, 20,000 in gift cards? How much, Andrew?
Yeah, it was just under 1,000 gift cards, totaling $20,000.
$20,000 in gift cards to Paramount residents, and as well as residents that are visiting. That happened at Heritage. It happened at Friday Night Paramount, all the events. So they were a hot commodity, as you can imagine, and we're getting some good feedback from the local mom and pop businesses that it's bringing business to their stores, which is exactly what this is intended to do. So don't forget to shop Paramount this week, please. Next, I'd like to welcome our new Assistant Public Safety Director. He's in the front row there, Eric Wosick. Eric, why don't you go and stand up and wave to the council there. Welcome aboard. Eric is a graduate of UCLA with 20 years of experience. 20. Eric has 20 years of experience in the field of public safety. Most recently, he worked for the city of Norwalk, where he's currently the administrative lieutenant and emergency services manager. He led programs related to crime reduction, homeless outreach, and disaster preparedness. We look forward to have him bring in his own unique brand of supportive leadership and community engagement that he helps serve the residents of Paramount, that he will help to serve us here in Paramount, just like he did in Norwalk for 20 years. We know that he'll be a great fit for both the department and the city. So, welcome aboard, Eric. And lastly, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to extend my personal appreciation for the thank yous that you all have showered onto the staff. They definitely appreciate that, and they definitely deserve that. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. That makes every difference. They are very, very talented in what they do across the board, and I'm very, very happy to lead them and proud to lead such a talented group of individuals. Thank you.
I just want to comment, leadership comes from the top. Thank you, John.
It's a village. Hashtag.
Okay. Thank you, John. Now we will recess into closed session. John, will you please announce the closed session items, sir?
I certainly will, Madam Mayor. I was looking at Mr. Kavanaugh, but I guess I'll do that. That's fine. I'll do it, Mr. Kavanaugh.
Yes,
Since you do the report out. Yes, we are going into closed session right now, conference with legal counsel for potential litigation, 2 cases. The first one is a claim from Shadowwood Development. The next one is potential litigation against the city. There are several APN numbers. I will read the first.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. 6236035, and then the last 3 digits of each one is 011 and 012 and 013.
Okay. Now we will be going into closed session. I think we'll get me some food.
You're gonna take it in there for me, huh? Elma. Appreciate that. Elma. I'll take it in there.
Yes.
I need to get Nikki. Hey, Nick.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm gonna go to the restroom and get something to eat. I'm starving. Hey there.
Yeah, me too. I gotta go.
close proximity to the country's largest ports and the mega market opportunities in Los Angeles, Paramount has become home to many businesses, some of them with remarkable stories to tell, like Wavefront Technologies, which manufactures computer peripheral equipment.
Originally, Wavefront was founded by 4 individuals. Basically, to find an industrial unit, we drew a vector.
With close proximity to the country's largest ports and the mega market opportunities in Los Angeles. Paramount is a built-out city with a relatively low ratio of parks to population. It has become known, though, for creative thinking in both open space partnerships and shared use facilities. Take the city's newest recreational venue, Salud Park. Since available land to build a 10-acre fitness park was scarce, Paramount entered into a special agreement with Southern California Edison to use a portion of the utilities right-of-way, and a previously park-poor area gained a valuable new resource. Thinking outside the box with Paramount Unified has led to financial savings for both the city and the school district, and great spaces and facilities for the city's kids. Some schools use adjacent parks for recess and PE. City youth leagues play on school fields, and the STAR after-school program is staffed by city employees, held on district campuses, and paid for by a state grant.
My kids have kids. I'm 49, but we're sold all over the United States, 50 states and Canada, a little bit into Mexico. I went to the drive-in with my father. I took my kids to the drive-in. And then all of a sudden my kids have kids and they don't go to the drive-in anymore. I thought it was time to bring the drive-in back because there was a demand for the drive-in. The media came out in force. You know, we had Channel 2, 4, 7, 9, 11, all out with their trucks, filming the grand opening and how exciting it was to have, you know, a drive-in.
World Energy is a biofuels producing company that was founded 21 years ago. Started off at its headquarters in Boston, Massachusetts, and acquired our location in Paramount a little over a year ago in March of 2018.
World Energy is innovative because we are one of the few renewable fuels producer, and we are actually the only one in the world that currently produce jet as well as gasoline.
In 1940, Frank Zamboni and his brother and a cousin opened Paramount Iceland, and they soon learned that taking care of the ice was something that required a significant amount of time. And he started experimenting with different ways to resurface the ice, and he figured a self-propelled ice resurfacing machine would be his goal. It's really eye-opening when we talk to people about our longevity in the city of Paramount. It could be just people who have a familiarity because they've skated at Paramount Iceland in the past, or it could be somebody that has an awareness of our business. It's humbling when you hear stories like that people so strongly associate your brand and your identity with a community, and we feel really honored to be a part of that.
Paramount, home to classic companies, while also contributing innovative products and technologies to the world. From dairies to a period of decline, to the renaissance brought about by redevelopment, the Paramount story is a unique one. The villages of Hines and Clearwater were the center of Southern California's dairy industry, known as the Milk Shed of Los Angeles and the world's largest hay market. Hines Clearwater also featured the hay tree, where the price of that staple was set each day for the entire world. Today, the tree is a California State Historical Landmark. In 1948, the towns unified under the Paramount name and officially became a city in 1957. Years went by, the region urbanized. The land became more valuable for houses, retail, and industry than for cows and haylots. By 1982, while still basically made up of stable middle-class neighborhoods, Paramount was labeled a disaster area due to blight and other negative issues. Consequently, Paramount has long been recognized for facing and overcoming obstacles. It's a small town with a big heart and a remarkable historical narrative of renewal and resiliency. Paramount is home to several highly anticipated and robustly attended community events throughout the year. Residents always have something to look forward to here. Perhaps the biggest crowd comes out for the Halloween festival that has provided safe and spooky fun for decades. Soon thereafter, a special tradition honors the community's elders at the Senior Thanksgiving Luncheon, where all those attending can feast, dance, and, of course, give thanks. Then comes Paramount's renowned holiday events. It all starts with the tree lighting ceremony, where thousands of residents kick off the season. A week later, kids in every neighborhood get a chance to say hello to Mr. Claus on the beloved Santa train, which just celebrated its 50th anniversary. If you can't make the train, you can have breakfast with Santa a little later during a snow day celebration in the park. Then with the new year, there are a series of special outings such as the Eco-Friendly Fair, the Heritage Festival, Children's Day, summer concerts in the park, and the monthly night market that offer ongoing entertainment and information. So if you're in the area, come celebrate with us in Paramount.
Welcome to Paramount, California. I'm Velma Gueb Stallings, mayor of this beautiful, vibrant community, and I'm proud to introduce you to our town.
Originally an agricultural center full of dairies and the world's largest hay market, the city today is just small-town America dropped into the middle of urban Los Angeles County. Its tree-lined neighborhoods with white picket fences, celebrated holiday events, ice skating rink, and drive-in movie theater provide a distinctive personality, and it offers convenient access to the amenities of the region. A diverse community of hardworking people, Paramount is stable and secure. The city maintains a close partnership with the Paramount Unified School District and a proactive, balanced relationship with the LA County Sheriff's Department. Add a strong investment in infrastructure, and you have a city that looks good and is a wonderful place to live, work, play, and raise a family. It's all about quality of life for residents, creating a town that people are proud to call home.
There's more to discover about our city in the videos that follow, so come along with us to explore Paramount.
Should I go in this way or that way? This way?
Yes, really cold.
Property or Paramount and do some finger trucks, huh?
There you go. I was gonna say, that could be part of the deal. When you're ready to leave the cargo parcel. Thank you. The little houses.
Oh, there you go.
Huh?
Order ready to place.
Go ahead.
One thing before you go to.
Okay, we're gonna go live.
Oh, I have a cookie.
Sorry. I put my sweater on.
We're good?
Yeah. Oh, we're good? Okay. Now I call to order the city council meeting back to order in open session. Mr. Kavanaugh, may we have a report on the closed session, sir?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. Members of the City Council, we did have a duly authorized closed session. There were 2 items on the closed session. One was conference with legal counsel. There were 2 potential litigations. One involved the claim of Shadowwood Development, and another one involving APN number 6236, 035, 011, 012, and 013. After the council was briefed on those 2 matters, at this particular point in time, there is no reportable action to be taken. That concludes my presentation.
Okay. That brings us to the end of tonight's agenda. I would like to adjourn our meeting in memory of the Monterey Park police officer who lost his life in a senseless act of violence last week. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family and the entire law enforcement community. Our next meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 6th at 6 o'clock, 2022. Good night, everyone.